The number was wrong, and it was going to destroy her. Lucas Reed, single father, former financial consultant, man who'd traded boardrooms for bedtime stories, spotted the error in seconds. The woman standing barefoot in the sand, designer suit soaked at the hem, didn't know her company was bleeding millions. She didn't know her CFO had just abandoned ship. She didn't know the vultures were already circling, but Lucas knew numbers, and this one was about to cost her everything. If you want to see how a father's instinct saved an empire, stay until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The morning had started with silence, which was exactly what Lucas Reed needed. No cartoons blaring from the living room. No tiny voice asking why clouds float or whether mermaids pay taxes. No negotiations over breakfast cereal or the eternal struggle of convincing a 6-year-old that yes, socks are mandatory, even in summer. Just Lucas, the Pacific Ocean, and the rare gift of 48 hours without single father responsibilities. His daughter Emma was safe with her Aunt Caroline, probably already elbow-deep in cookie dough and craft supplies that would inevitably create a cleanup nightmare. But that was Caroline's problem for the weekend. Lucas had exactly 2 days to remember what it felt like to be a person instead of just dad. He'd chosen the beach not for Instagram-worthy sunrise photos or spiritual awakening nonsense, but because it was free, quiet at 7 a.m., and required nothing from him except walking. The wet sand was cold beneath his bare feet. The wind carried salt and the smell of seaweed. Gulls argued over something dead near the waterline. Perfect. Lucas had been walking for maybe 20 minutes when he saw her. At first she was just a silhouette, a dark figure standing motionless where the sand met the rocky outcropping at the beach's north end. As he got closer, details emerged that didn't fit the setting. She wore a suit. Not beach casual, not I'm pretending to be professional while on vacation business wear, but an actual tailored suit. Charcoal gray, probably worth more than Lucas's monthly rent. The jacket hung open, revealing a white silk blouse that the ocean breeze pressed against her frame. Her skirt ended just above her knees, and her bare feet, pale against the dark sand, held expensive heels that she'd apparently abandoned nearby. Her hair was dark, pulled back in what had probably started as a perfect bun, but had surrendered to the wind. She held a leather portfolio in both hands, staring at it like it contained either the secrets of the universe or her own death sentence. Lucas slowed, but didn't stop. Beach etiquette was simple. Don't bother people who clearly came here to not be bothered. He was about to pass when the wind gusted hard. The portfolio snapped open. Papers exploded into the air like panicked birds. The woman made a desperate grab but only managed to catch 2 sheets. The rest scattered, some tumbling down the beach, others dancing toward the water. "Damn it!" Her voice was sharp, controlled even in crisis. "No, no, no!" Lucas didn't think. Fatherhood had rewired his brain for automatic crisis response. Papers flying? Chase them. It didn't matter that they weren't his daughter's homework or permission slips or the appointment card he always lost. He sprinted. The wind was playing games, lifting sheets just as he reached for them, then dropping them teasingly just beyond his grasp. He caught one against his chest, pinned another under his foot, grabbed a third from the air like an outfielder making a desperate catch. Behind him, he heard the woman running too, her breath sharp with frustration. Lucas managed to snag 2 more pages before they hit the water. He spun, scanning for others, and saw the woman on her knees in the sand gathering what she could reach, her suit jacket trailing in the wet sand. 3 sheets were already in the surf, dissolving into expensive pulp. "I got these," Lucas called, jogging toward her with his handful of rescued documents. She looked up, and he got his first clear view of her face. She was maybe 35, with sharp features that suggested she didn't smile often and didn't need to. Her eyes were dark, intense, currently blazing with a mixture of frustration and something else. Fear, maybe, or exhaustion so deep it looked like fear. "Thank you." She stood quickly, brushing sand from her knees with one hand while clutching papers with the other. "I appreciate... You've got sand on your..." Lucas gestured vaguely at her jacket. "I'm aware." Her tone could have frozen the ocean. "The papers?" Lucas handed them over, but as he did, his eyes caught something on the top sheet. Numbers. He'd spent 15 years as a financial consultant before Emma was born. Another 3 doing freelance work from home after his ex-wife left, before even that became too much to balance with solo parenting. But some instincts never died. These weren't just any numbers. This was a financial summary, company overview, quarterly projections, acquisition costs. And something was very, very wrong. This line here, Lucas pointed before he could stop himself. Your Q3 operating costs, they don't match the projected annual total. If you're running at this rate, you'd need to be spending nearly 40% less in Q4 to hit this number, which isn't realistic if you're scaling for, excuse me? The woman's voice dropped 10 degrees. Lucas looked up from the paper and found her staring at him with an expression that mixed shock with something dangerous. Sorry, he said quickly. Occupational hazard. I shouldn't have. Who are you? Nobody. Just a guy on the beach who reads too much. Lucas stepped back, raising his hands in surrender. I didn't mean to. Eyes are up here. The command was delivered with such absolute authority that Lucas straightened involuntarily, his gaze snapping from the paper to her face. Yes, ma'am. The words came out automatically, not from fear, but from something else, recognition, maybe. This was a woman who commanded rooms, who made decisions that affected hundreds of people, who probably hadn't heard the word no in years. And when she did, she simply replaced whoever said it. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Lucas waited, feeling oddly like he was 6 years old again, standing in the principal's office trying to explain why he'd corrected his math teacher's equation on the board. You're a financial analyst, she finally said. Not a question. Was. Long time ago. Lucas shrugged. Now I'm mostly just a dad who's really good at stretching a grocery budget. Something flickered in her expression, not softening exactly, but a slight recalibration. What did you see? She held up the paper he'd pointed at. In 5 seconds of glancing at this, Lucas hesitated. Every instinct said, walk away. This wasn't his business. He'd come to the beach specifically to not deal with other people's problems, but the number was still wrong, and wrong numbers meant something bad. Your operating costs are inflated, he said quietly. Either your Q3 spending was unusually high for some reason, or someone's categorizing expenses incorrectly. If I had to guess, and I'm just guessing based on the acquisition line items, you're probably bleeding money somewhere that's not showing up in the right columns. The woman's jaw tightened. How much of this did you read? Just the top sheet. I wasn't trying to snoop, Lucas stopped. Look, I'm sorry. This is none of my business. You want the papers back, or should I just go? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked down at the documents in her hands, then at the 3 sheets slowly disintegrating in the surf, then back at Lucas. What's your name? Lucas Reed. Natalie Brooks. She didn't offer her hand. You said you were a financial analyst. Where? Mercer and Klein in Seattle, corporate restructuring mostly. Left about 6 years ago. Why? Lucas almost laughed. Because my daughter needed a parent more than boardrooms needed another consultant. Single father? Yes, ma'am. That ma'am again. It just kept slipping out around her. Natalie's expression shifted slightly. Not warmth. She didn't seem capable of warmth, but something like recognition. I'm the CEO of Brooksline Media, she said abruptly. We're a digital content network. About 400 employees, 70 million in annual revenue. We acquired a smaller competitor 3 months ago, and the integration has been, she paused, choosing her word carefully. Complicated. Lucas said nothing. This felt like a test. My CFO resigned this morning, Natalie continued, via email, at 4 a.m. No transition plan, no warning, just a 2-sentence message saying he was accepting another position effective immediately. That's illegal? Unethical? A burning red flag? Natalie's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. Yes, all of those things, which is why I came here instead of going to the office, because if I walked into that building right now, I'd either fire everyone or have a breakdown, and neither option is acceptable. The ocean filled the silence between them. The board meeting is Monday, Natalie said. One of our investors, Victor Lane, has been asking questions about the acquisition costs, implying there's financial mismanagement. My CFO's sudden departure is going to look like confirmation of that. which means Victor's going to push for my removal. Is there mismanagement? I don't know. The admission seemed to cost her. I trusted my CFO. He handled the numbers. I focused on content strategy, partnerships, growth. That's how executive teams are supposed to work. Until they don't, Lucas said quietly. Until they don't, Natalie agreed. Another wave crashed. A jogger passed behind them, earbuds in, oblivious. Mr. Reed, Natalie said slowly, how would you like a job? Lucas blinked. I'm sorry, what? Temporary position. Forensic review of our acquisition integration. I need to know if Victor's concerns are legitimate or if he's just positioning for a power play. You find the truth, I pay you, we both move on. I haven't worked in corporate finance in 6 years, but you can still spot a discrepancy in 5 seconds. I have a daughter. She's 6. I can't just... It's Thursday. The board meeting is Monday afternoon, 4 days. Natalie's eyes were steady, calculating. You said she's with family this weekend? Lucas stared at her. How did you... You said you're a single father. You're at the beach alone on a Thursday morning. Either she's in school and you're unemployed, or she's elsewhere and you have temporary freedom. Given that you mentioned stretching grocery budgets, I'm guessing you work, which means this is a rare weekend off. She was terrifying. I'd need access to your financial systems, Lucas said, and immediately wondered why he was negotiating instead of walking away. Complete access, accounting software, bank statements, acquisition documents, vendor contracts. You'll have it. And I work from wherever I want. I'm not coming to an office. Fine. And if I find something you don't like, I'm telling you the truth. I don't do creative accounting or convenient interpretations. I wouldn't hire you if you did. Lucas ran his hand through his hair, feeling the last 6 years of his carefully constructed simple life trying to reassert control. He thought about Emma, who was happy and safe and didn't need her dad chasing ghosts in someone else's financial records. He thought about his bank account, which could definitely use whatever Natalie was offering. He thought about the number on that page and what it meant if he was right. Hourly rate is $200, he heard himself say. Half up front, half on delivery. And if this goes past Sunday night, I'm out. My daughter comes home Monday morning, and I'm not missing that. Deal. Natalie pulled out her phone. Give me your email. I'll send the NDA and access credentials within the hour. Lucas rattled off his email address, still not quite believing this was happening. Natalie typed quickly, then looked up. One more thing. This stays quiet. My team doesn't know I'm doing this. Victor Lane definitely can't know. As far as anyone's concerned, you don't exist. I'm good at not existing, Lucas said. 6 years of single fatherhood teaches you how to be invisible. Something almost like a smile touched Natalie's face. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Lucas. Nobody calls me Mr. Reed except my daughter's principal. Lucas then. She extended her hand finally. Her grip was firm, cool, exactly what he'd expected. I'll have everything to you by noon, Natalie said. Read the NDA carefully. It's thorough. I'm sure it is. She gathered her papers, slipped them back into the portfolio, and picked up her shoes. For a moment, she just stood there, looking out at the ocean. I built this company from nothing, she said quietly. 8 years ago, it was just me and a laptop. Now it's 400 people with mortgages and families and dreams. If Victor takes control, he'll gut it, strip the assets, sell the profitable divisions, and shut down everything else. Then we don't let him take control, Lucas said. Natalie looked at him with something that might have been hope, if hope wore armor. Get me the truth, she said. That's all I need. Then she walked away, her bare feet leaving prints in the sand that the next wave erased. Lucas stood there for a long moment, watching her disappear around the rocky outcropping. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably Caroline sending him a photo of Emma covered in cookie dough or paint or whatever chaos they'd created. Instead, it was an email notification. Subject, NDA and access credentials. Brooksline Media. Natalie didn't waste time. Lucas opened the attachment and started reading as he walked back toward his car. The NDA was, as promised, thorough. Brutally so. He'd seen lighter security clearances, but underneath the legal language, he could read what Natalie hadn't said out loud. She was desperate. People who weren't desperate didn't hire strangers they met on beaches. They didn't send access credentials to their entire financial system to someone they'd known for 10 minutes. She was drowning, and she'd grabbed the first hand she saw. Lucas reached his car, a 12-year-old Honda Civic with a child seat in the back and an impressive collection of dried Cheerios in the cup holders. He sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine, reading through the NDA twice more. If he signed this, he was in. No backing out, no changing his mind. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Caroline. "Emma made you a card. It says, Daddy is the best, but she spelled it, Daddy is the B-set. And I'm never correcting her." The photo showed Emma holding up a piece of construction paper covered in glitter, stickers, and the kind of pure joy that only 6-year-olds could manufacture from craft supplies. Lucas smiled despite himself. Then he opened his email, typed his name into the NDA signature field, and hit send. The access credentials arrived 30 minutes later. Lucas was back in his rented beach house, a tiny one-bedroom place that cost too much but was all he could find on short notice, with his laptop open on the small kitchen table. Natalie's email was brief. "Credentials attached. Start with the acquisition folder. Full due diligence package should be there. My CFO's last day of actual work was Tuesday, so anything after that is suspect. I need preliminary findings by Sunday morning. Full analysis by Monday noon if possible." NB Lucas logged into Brooksline Media's financial system and immediately felt like he'd stepped back in time. This was his language. Balance sheets, cash flow statements, vendor ledgers, payroll data. Numbers that told stories if you knew how to read them. He started with the acquisition documents. Brooksline had purchased a smaller content network called Velocity Digital 3 months ago. Purchase price, $18 million. The due diligence package was complete. Tax returns, asset valuations, employment contracts, intellectual property assessments. On paper, it looked clean. Lucas dug deeper. The integration expenses were logged in a separate folder. This was where things got interesting. When you bought a company, you didn't just hand over a check and call it done. You had to merge systems, consolidate offices, handle redundant employees, rebrand assets. All of that cost money. Brooksline's integration budget had been set at $2 million. Actual spending to date, $4.3 million. Lucas sat back, frowning. Budget overruns happened. But more than doubling your estimate in 3 months? That suggested either catastrophically bad planning or something else. He opened the expense details. The first few items made sense. System migration costs, severance packages, office consolidation. Standard stuff, if a bit pricey. Then he found the vendor payments. Over the past 3 months, Brooksline had paid nearly $1.2 million to a company called Apex Solutions Group for integration consulting services. Lucas had never heard of Apex Solutions Group. He opened a new browser tab and searched. The company had a website, sleek, professional, completely generic. The kind of site that looked legitimate but said absolutely nothing. Their services page listed every possible business consulting buzzword without actually explaining what they did. Red flag number 1. Lucas went back to the financial system and traced the payment history. Apex Solutions had been paid in 6 installments over 3 months. Each invoice was for exactly $200,000. Each was approved by the CFO personally. No supporting documentation, no timesheets, no deliverables listed, just consulting services and a signature. Lucas's phone rang, making him jump. Caroline's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," he answered. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect. Emma wanted to call and say goodnight. It's 2 in the afternoon. She's having a sleepover experience. Apparently sleepovers require afternoon goodnight calls. I don't make the rules." Lucas heard rustling, then his daughter's voice. "Daddy! Hey, Pumpkin, you having fun? Aunt Caroline let me put sprinkles on my sandwich." "That sounds creative." "It was disgusting, but I ate it anyway because I'm brave." Lucas laughed. "You're very brave." "You being good?" "The goodest. Are you having fun at the beach?" He looked at his laptop screen, at the spreadsheet of suspicious payments, and the CEO who'd hired him out of desperation. "Yeah," he said. "I'm having fun." "Good. Aunt Caroline says you need fun because you're always worried about grown-up stuff." "Aunt Caroline is very wise." She also says I can stay up until 9 watching movies. Does she? Mm-hmm. So you don't have to worry about me. I'm totally fine. I'm glad, sweetheart. Okay? I love you. Bye. And she was gone, leaving him with dial tone and the echo of her joy. Lucas set down his phone and looked at the screen again. $1.2 million to a ghost company. He kept digging. By midnight, Lucas had found the pattern. It wasn't just Apex Solutions. There were 3 other vendors that had appeared in Brooksline's systems immediately after the acquisition. All of them had generic names and vaguer websites. All of them were being paid significant amounts for undefined consulting or integration services. Total, $2.8 million over 3 months. And every single payment had been personally approved by the CFO, who'd just resigned. Lucas created a spreadsheet tracking the payments, then cross-referenced them against the integration budget. Someone had been careful. The expenses were categorized across different departments, making them harder to spot if you weren't looking for a pattern. But they were there. He pulled up the vendor registration documents and found something interesting. All 4 companies had been registered to the same business address in Delaware. Delaware, where shell companies went to hide. Lucas searched the address. It belonged to a corporate services firm, the kind of place that existed solely to provide legal addresses for companies that didn't want to be found. He was staring at money laundering, or embezzlement, or both. His phone buzzed, an email from Natalie. Status update? Lucas checked the time, 12:47 a.m. Did this woman sleep? He typed back. Found something. Not good. Need to verify before I make accusations. We'll have preliminary report by morning. The reply came within seconds. How bad? Lucas stared at the question, then at the numbers on his screen. Potentially very bad. You should get some sleep. That's not happening. Send me what you have. It's not complete. I need to... Mr. Reed, send me what you have. There was that tone again, the one that made ma'am slip out automatically. Lucas compiled his findings into a brief summary and hit send. Then he stood up, stretched, and walked to the kitchen to make coffee he didn't need but was going to drink anyway. This was bad. Not just budget overrun bad. This was someone's going to jail bad. The question was, who knew? His phone rang. Natalie, of course. This is fraud, she said without preamble. These companies don't exist. They exist legally, Lucas corrected, but they're shells. Someone set them up specifically to funnel money out of your acquisition budget. My CFO. Almost certainly. And Victor Lane? That was the question Lucas had been wrestling with. I don't know yet, he admitted. Lane's the one raising concerns about the acquisition costs, which could mean he's either complicit and creating cover, or he's genuinely onto something but doesn't have the full picture. If he's complicit, why would he draw attention to it? Power play, Lucas said. If he can make you look incompetent, he can push for your removal and install someone more cooperative. Then the money keeps flowing and nobody asks questions. And if he's not complicit, then you've got a different problem. Someone on your team is stealing from you, and when Lane figures it out, he's going to assume you knew. Silence on the other end. What do you need from me? Natalie finally asked. Access to your CFO's work computer and email. Also, I need to know about Victor Lane's financial relationship with Brooksline, investment history, board compensation, any companies he owns that you do business with. The CFO's machine is locked. IT can get you in, but I need to authorize it, which means I need to tell IT something. Tell them you're doing a routine audit. Don't mention fraud yet. And Victor? That information should be in your corporate governance files. If not, check with your legal counsel. This is going to blow up, Natalie said quietly. When this comes out, it's going to destroy us. Only if you let it, Lucas said. Right now, you've got the advantage. You know what's happening before anyone else does. That gives you time to control the narrative. I don't have time. The board meeting is Monday. Then we work fast. Another pause. Thank you, Natalie said, for this, for helping. You're paying me. I'm paying you for analysis. You're giving me more than that. Lucas didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. I'll have the CFO's access credentials to you by 8 a.m., Natalie said. Victor's information too. Get some sleep, Mr. Reed. You too, Miss Brooks. That's not happening. She hung up. Lucas stood in his tiny kitchen holding his phone and coffee and wondered what the hell he'd gotten himself into. Then he went back to work. The CFO's email access arrived at 7:53 a.m., 7 minutes ahead of Natalie's promised deadline. Lucas had managed approximately 90 minutes of sleep on the couch, his laptop still open on the coffee table, displaying spreadsheets that had invaded his dreams. He'd woken to Emma's daily good morning text, a tradition Caroline maintained even during sleepovers. Today's message was a photo of pancakes shaped like a cat, or possibly a dog, or maybe just an accident. The accompanying text read, "Aunt Caroline says breakfast is the most important meal, so I'm eating 5 pancakes. Love you, Daddy." Lucas smiled, texted back a heart emoji, then logged into the CFO's email, and immediately wished he hadn't. The account belonged to a man named Richard Vasquez, who'd been with Brooksline Media for 4 years. His inbox was meticulously organized, folders for every project, every department, every vendor relationship. The kind of organization that suggested either genuine competence or someone who knew people would eventually be looking. Lucas started with the Velocity Digital Acquisition folder. The early emails were normal. Due diligence discussions, valuation debates, negotiation strategies. Richard had been cautious about the purchase, raising concerns about Velocity's debt load and whether their content library was worth the premium Natalie wanted to pay. Then, 3 weeks before the acquisition closed, the tone changed. An email from Victor Lane. "Richard, I've reviewed your concerns about the Velocity purchase. While I appreciate your diligence, I think you're being overly conservative. This acquisition positions us perfectly for the Q4 content push. Natalie's instincts here are sound." Richard's response, "Understood. I'll proceed with the current valuation model." Just like that. No further pushback, no documentation of his concerns for the record, just immediate capitulation. Lucas frowned. That wasn't how experienced CFOs operated. When you had legitimate concerns about an $18 million purchase, you didn't drop them because one board member told you to. Unless that board member had leverage. He kept reading. 2 days after the acquisition closed, Richard received an email from an address Lucas didn't recognize. Package confirmed. First installment processed per our agreement. Richard's response? Acknowledged. Lucas's heart rate kicked up. He traced the sender's email address, a Gmail account under the name Robert Chen. No company affiliation, no signature line, nothing that connected it to any legitimate business. He searched Richard's sent folder for other correspondence with Robert Chen. 17 emails over 3 months. All brief, all cryptic, all confirming installments or packages or processing. Lucas pulled up his timeline of the suspicious vendor payments and compared dates. Every time Brooksline paid one of the shell companies, Richard received an email from Robert Chen within 48 hours. He'd found his money launderer. The question now was whether Victor Lane was Robert Chen or whether Victor was simply providing cover while someone else ran the scheme. Lucas needed more data. He opened Richard's browser history, risky since IT could theoretically track this, but Natalie had given him authorization and he was running out of time. Richard had been careful. No direct searches for offshore accounts or money laundering, but he'd visited several cryptocurrency exchange sites, multiple travel booking engines showing flights to the Cayman Islands, and, interestingly, a legal advice forum where he'd posted an anonymous question about whistleblower protections. That last one stopped Lucas cold. The post was from 6 days ago. Hypothetically, if someone discovered financial fraud at their company but was pressured by a board member to stay quiet, what protections exist if they decide to report it? The responses were varied, mostly advising the poster to consult a real attorney, but one caught Lucas's attention. Document everything. Email yourself evidence from a personal account. Create a paper trail that proves you raised concerns. That's your insurance. Richard had taken that advice. Lucas searched Richard's sent mail for messages to external email addresses. There were dozens, mostly personal correspondence, industry newsletters, random vendor spam. But buried in the noise was a pattern. Over the past 3 weeks, Richard had forwarded himself to a private Gmail account copies of every vendor invoice, every payment authorization, every email exchange with Victor Lane about the acquisition. Richard wasn't just stealing, he was building a case, which meant he'd known exactly what was happening and had been preparing to either expose it or use it as leverage. The resignation suddenly made sense. Richard hadn't fled in panic. He'd exited strategically, with evidence and timing designed to maximum damage. The question was, damage to whom? Lucas pulled up Victor Lane's investor file and started reading. Victor had joined Brooksline's board 3 years ago as part of a Series B funding round. His venture capital firm, Lane Capital Partners, had invested $5 million for a 15% stake. Standard deal, nothing suspicious. But Victor had pushed hard for the Velocity acquisition, despite Richard's initial objections and despite Velocity's questionable financials. He'd overruled concerns, smoothed over problems, and generally acted like someone who needed that deal to close. Lucas searched Brooksline's vendor database for any companies connected to Lane Capital Partners. Nothing direct. But when he expanded his search to include companies that shared board members or investors with Lane's portfolio companies, he found something interesting. Apex Solutions Group, the ghost company that had received the largest chunk of fraudulent payments, was registered in Delaware by a law firm that also handled incorporation for 3 companies in Victor's investment portfolio. Not proof, but connection. Lucas was staring at the screen trying to decide his next move when his phone rang. "Tell me you have something," Natalie said without greeting. "Your CFO was documenting evidence before he left," Lucas said. He forwarded copies of everything to a personal email account. He was either planning to expose the fraud or use it as leverage. Against whom? That's what I can't tell yet, but Victor Lane is connected to at least one of the shell companies through a shared law firm. That's not evidence. No, it's not, but it's a thread. If I pull hard enough, Lucas. Natalie's voice was tight. Victor just called an emergency board meeting. Tomorrow, Saturday. He's claiming he has evidence of financial mismanagement and is demanding immediate oversight of all acquisition-related accounts. That's faster than I expected. He knows something or suspects something. Either way, if he gets access to those accounts before I can control the narrative, I'm done. Lucas heard the fear underneath her control. This was a woman who'd built an empire and could feel it crumbling. "Where are you?" he asked. "My office. I've been here since 3 a.m. Go home. Get some sleep. You're no good to anyone if you collapse." "I don't need sleep. I need answers." "You need both." Lucas stood, pacing the small living room. "Look, I can have a preliminary report by this afternoon. Enough to show the board that you're actively investigating. But if you want the full picture, who's involved, where the money went, how deep this goes, I need another day minimum. The meeting is tomorrow at 10 a.m. Then I work through the night. But Natalie, you need to be sharp. Victor's going to come at you hard, and if you're running on no sleep and pure adrenaline, you'll make mistakes." Silence. "When did you start calling me Natalie?" she asked. Lucas paused. He hadn't realized he had. "When you started calling me at 8 a.m. on a Saturday like we're war buddies," he said, something that might have been a laugh. "Fair enough. What do you need from me?" "Access to Victor's emails if you can get it legally. Otherwise, I need to talk to Richard Vasquez directly." "Richard's not going to talk. He's lawyered up." "Everyone talks if you ask the right questions. You have his personal contact information? I'm not giving you his number so you can harass him. I'm not going to harass him. I'm going to offer him a deal." "What kind of deal?" "The kind where he helps us and doesn't go to prison." Well, Lucas could practically hear Natalie thinking, weighing options, calculating risk. "I'll text you his number," she finally said. "But if this backfires, it won't." "You don't know that." "No," Lucas admitted, "but I'm good at reading people, and Richard's scared. Scared people make deals. And if he's working with Victor, then we're in trouble regardless, and at least we'll know." Another pause. "I hired you 2 days ago," Natalie said. "Now you're negotiating with potential criminals on my behalf." "You hired me to find the truth. This is how you find truth. You follow it into uncomfortable places and ask uncomfortable questions." "Is that what they taught you at Mercer and Klein?" "No. That's what single fatherhood taught me. Kids lie when they're scared. Adults do the same thing, just with bigger words. This time Natalie definitely laughed, though it was brief and sharp. Richard's number is coming to you now, she said. Don't make me regret this. I'll do my best. Lucas? Yeah? Thank you for caring. You don't have to. Yes, I do, Lucas said quietly. 400 people work for you. They've got families and mortgages and dreams, numbers on a spreadsheet, sure, but also real lives. Someone stealing from them. That's worth caring about. Natalie didn't respond for a long moment. Get me answers, she finally said, and hung up. The text arrived 30 seconds later. Richard Vasquez's phone number and an address in Portland. Lucas stared at the information, then grabbed his car keys. This was either going to solve everything or blow up spectacularly. Possibly both. The drive to Portland took 3 hours through traffic that tested Lucas's patience and his Civic's aging transmission. He texted Caroline that he might be late picking up Emma on Monday, received a string of supportive emojis in response, and then turned off his phone's notifications so he could think. Richard Vasquez lived in a modern townhouse development that probably cost more than Lucas would earn in 5 years. The neighborhood was the kind of place where everyone had perfect lawns and luxury cars and never actually talked to their neighbors. Lucas parked 2 houses down, uncertain of his plan. You couldn't just knock on a door and accuse someone of embezzlement. That's how you got doors slammed in your face or police called. But he also didn't have time for subtle. He was still sitting in his car, debating approach strategies, when the townhouse door opened and Richard Vasquez walked out. Lucas recognized him from his LinkedIn photo, mid-40s, fit, wearing expensive casual clothes that screamed, "I'm not working today, but I could afford to never work again." He carried a gym bag and was heading toward a Tesla in the driveway. Now or never. Lucas got out of his car. Richard Vasquez? Richard froze, his hand on the Tesla's door handle. His eyes found Lucas, assessed him in about 2 seconds, and his entire body language shifted to defensive. Who's asking? My name is Lucas Reed. I'm working for Natalie Brooks. I don't work for Natalie anymore. We have nothing to discuss. We have $2.8 million in fraudulent vendor payments to discuss. Also your emails to Robert Chen, also your carefully documented evidence trail. Also the fact that Victor Lane is making his move tomorrow and you're about to be caught in the middle. Richard's face went pale. I have a lawyer. Talk to my lawyer. Your lawyer can't protect you from what's coming, Lucas said calmly. Victor's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow. He's going to accuse Natalie of financial mismanagement. When the board starts digging, they're going to find your shell companies and your payment approvals, and you're going to be the easy target. I didn't. Richard stopped himself. Leave, now, or I'm calling the police. Oh, call them, Lucas said. Explain to them why you've been forwarding company financial documents to a personal email account. Explain the cryptocurrency exchanges in your browser history. Explain Robert Chen. Richard's hand trembled on the car door. Who are you really? He asked quietly. I'm exactly who I said I am. Financial analyst working for Natalie. She hired me to figure out why her acquisition costs are double the budget. I found your shell companies in about 6 hours, which means Victor's going to find them too, if he hasn't already. Victor already knows. The admission came out flat, defeated. Lucas's heart rate spiked. How much does he know? Everything, because it's his operation. There it was, confirmation. Tell me, Lucas said. Richard looked around the quiet street, then back at Lucas. Not here. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks down. Meet me there in 10 minutes. Come alone, don't record anything, and if I even suspect you're setting me up, I disappear and you never find me. Deal. Richard got in his Tesla and drove off. Lucas waited exactly 2 minutes, then followed. The coffee shop was one of those aggressively hip places that served $12 lattes and had succulents on every surface. Richard was already at a corner table when Lucas arrived, 2 cups of coffee waiting. It's black, Richard said as Lucas sat down. I didn't know what you wanted. Black's fine. They sat in silence for a moment, 2 men who'd never met, now connected by fraud and fear. Victor approached me 3 months before the Velocity acquisition, Richard finally said. He had documentation showing that I'd made some questionable stock trades using company information. Nothing massive, maybe 30,000 in profit, but enough to get me fired and possibly charged. He blackmailed you. He offered me a partnership. Help him funnel acquisition funds through shell companies. He makes the trading thing disappear, plus I get 20% of whatever we pull. All I had to do was approve the payments and keep my mouth shut. And you said yes. I said yes. Richard's hands wrapped around his coffee cup. I told myself it was Natalie's fault. She pushed for an acquisition that didn't make financial sense. She ignored my concerns. She was so focused on growth that she didn't care about sustainability. I rationalized it. But then you changed your mind. I started seeing what it was doing. The company couldn't absorb those costs. We were cutting content budgets, delaying employee raises, shutting down projects. And Natalie kept asking me why we were so far over budget, and I kept lying to her face. Richard's voice cracked slightly. She trusted me. 4 years, she trusted every number I gave her, and I was bleeding her company dry so Victor could fund whatever his real play is.
What is his real play? I don't know. He never told me the end game, but he's been systematically weakening Brooksline for months. The money we stole is just part of it. He's also been spreading negative stories to industry press, poaching key employees, making sure every problem gets amplified. He wants control of the company. He wants to destroy it, Richard corrected. If he just wanted control, there are easier ways. This is personal for him. Something between him and Natalie. Lucas processed that. The evidence you've been collecting is my insurance policy. Victor thinks I'm weak. He thinks I'll take the fall quietly if things go bad. But I documented everything. Every email, every payment, every conversation. If he tries to burn me, I burn him back. Why tell me this? Richard met his eyes. Because you're not what I expected. Natalie usually hires sharks, people who'd crush me without blinking. You drove 3 hours to talk instead of just handing evidence to the police. That tells me you're trying to fix this, not just win. I'm trying to keep 400 people employed, Lucas said. That's all. Then we want the same thing. Richard pulled out his phone. I'll give you everything. Every email, every document, every detail of Victor's operation. But I need immunity. Not from the law. I'll deal with those consequences. I need immunity from Natalie. I need to know she won't destroy me when this is over. I can't promise that. Then we're done here. Richard started to stand. Wait. Lucas grabbed his arm. I can't promise immunity, but I can promise I'll tell her the truth. That you were coerced. That you tried to document it. That you're helping now. What she does with that is her choice. Richard sat back down slowly. You really believe that matters? Truth? It's the only thing that matters. They sat there, coffee cooling between them, while Richard made his decision. All right, he finally said, but we do this fast. Victor's moving tomorrow, which means he's confident he's covered his tracks. If we're going to stop him, we need to hit hard, and we need proof he can't deny. What kind of proof? The kind that shows he wasn't just stealing money. He was using it for something specific, something illegal enough that the board won't just fire him, they'll hand him over to prosecutors. Richard pulled out his phone and started scrolling through files. 3 weeks ago, I got suspicious about where the money was actually going. Victor told me it was being redistributed to his offshore accounts, but the amounts didn't track. So I followed the cryptocurrency trail. He showed Lucas a spreadsheet. The money from the shell companies got converted to Bitcoin, then moved through 6 different exchanges to obscure the source. But Victor got sloppy at the end. The final destination was a company called Harbor Digital Studios. What's Harbor Digital? On paper, a small content production company. In reality, it's Victor's company. He owns it through 2 layers of shell corporations, but it's his, and he's been using Brooksline's stolen money to fund it. Lucas stared at the spreadsheet. He's building a competitor. Worse, he's building a replacement. Harbor's been poaching Brooksline's best creators, offering them bigger contracts. Once he's got enough talent, he's going to tank Brooksline publicly, probably by exposing the fraud he orchestrated, then swoop in with Harbor as the ethical alternative. That's not just fraud. That's corporate sabotage. That's Victor Lane. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to salt the earth. Lucas sat back, his mind racing through implications. Why does he hate her this much?
Richard's expression shifted. You don't know? Know what? Victor and Natalie were engaged 8 years ago, before Brooksline existed. She left him to start the company, took his business plan, his investor contacts, his vision, everything he'd shared with her. She used to build her empire. She stole his company idea? According to Victor, yes. According to Natalie, at least based on what I've heard, they were partners and she was the one who actually did the work while he took credit. Either way, he's been waiting 8 years to destroy what she built. Lucas thought about Natalie on the beach, holding papers that were destroying her company. Thought about her at 3 a.m. in her office, fighting for something Victor had been systematically dismantling. We need to end this, he said. Tomorrow, at the board meeting. How? You're going to testify, not about your role, not yet, about Victor's. You're going to walk the board through every shell company, every payment, every piece of evidence that leads to Harbor Digital. And I'm going to show them the financial analysis proving this was orchestrated sabotage. Victor will destroy me. Victor's going to prison. He won't have time. Richard laughed, but there was no humor in it. You really think it's that simple? No, but I think it's necessary. Richard stared at his coffee cup for a long moment. I need to call my lawyer, he finally said. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it right. Full cooperation, full disclosure. Maybe that buys me some mercy. Maybe it does. And Lucas? Richard looked up. Tell Natalie I'm sorry, not because I think it fixes anything. Just tell her. I will. Richard stood, gathered his things. Send me your email. I'll transfer all the files tonight. Everything I have. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Victor's not going down easy. When he realizes we're coming for him, he's going to burn everything he can reach. Then we move faster than he does. Richard nodded and walked out, leaving Lucas alone with cold coffee and a phone full of evidence that would either save a company or destroy everyone involved. Lucas sat there for another minute, processing everything he'd learned, then pulled out his phone and called Natalie. She answered on the first ring. Tell me you have something. I have everything, Lucas said, and it's worse than we thought. He told her about Victor, about Harbor Digital, about the 8-year revenge plan. He told her about Richard's cooperation and the evidence trail and what they needed to do at tomorrow's board meeting. Natalie listened in complete silence. When he finished, she said, I'm going to kill him. You're going to let the legal system handle him. You don't understand. 8 years. He's been planning this for 8 years. I understand rage, Lucas said quietly. But rage won't save your company. Strategy will. We have the advantage now. We know what he's doing, and he doesn't know we know. That's power. What do you need from me? I need you to trust me. Tomorrow I'm going to present evidence at the board meeting. Richard's going to testify. It's going to be ugly and shocking, and there will be questions you can't answer yet. But you need to stay calm. Stay in control. Show the board you're handling this. I can do that. And Natalie? You need to decide what happens to Richard. He's cooperating, but he's also guilty. The board is going to ask what you want. Silence again. What do you think I should do? She finally asked. I think mercy is expensive but worth the investment. He made bad choices under coercion. He's trying to make it right. If you destroy him, you're just perpetuating Victor's cycle of revenge. When did you become a philosopher? When my ex-wife left and I had to explain to my daughter why sometimes good people make mistakes. Kids ask hard questions. You learn to have good answers. Natalie's laugh was soft, almost sad. You're a good father, aren't you? I try to be. I bet Emma's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. More silence, but it felt different now, comfortable. Get some sleep, Lucas. Tomorrow's going to be a war. You too. Yeah, maybe I will. She hung up. Lucas sat in the coffee shop for another few minutes, watching Portland's weekend crowd drift past the windows. Families with kids, couples holding hands, people living normal lives that didn't involve corporate fraud and 8-year revenge plots. He missed that, the simplicity of being just a dad. But somewhere along the way, he'd gotten pulled back into this world. And maybe that wasn't entirely bad. Maybe Emma could have a father who was both present and purposeful, who showed her you could be kind and still fight for what's right. His phone buzzed. Richard's file transfer had arrived. Gigabytes of evidence, organized with the same meticulous care Richard had shown in his email folders. Lucas downloaded everything, then started driving back to his beach rental. He had 16 hours to build a case that would end Victor Lane. Time to get to work. The beach house was dark when Lucas returned, the ocean audible through the thin walls, waves hitting sand in a rhythm that should have been calming but only reminded him how little time he had. He dropped his laptop bag on the kitchen table, grabbed the half pot of coffee he'd made that morning, now cold and bitter, and got to work. Richard's files were comprehensive to the point of obsession. Every email thread had been preserved with full headers showing timestamps and IP addresses. Every invoice had supporting documentation. Every payment had been traced through its complete journey from Brooksline's accounts to the shell companies, to the cryptocurrency exchanges, and finally to Harbor Digital Studios. It was beautiful in a way that only a financial analyst could appreciate. Richard had built a case so airtight that even the best defense attorney would struggle to create reasonable doubt. But beauty didn't matter if Lucas couldn't present it effectively. The board meeting was in 14 hours, and he needed to distill gigabytes of evidence into a narrative clear enough for non-financial people to understand and damning enough that they'd have no choice but to act. He opened a new document and started outlining. The challenge wasn't the facts. Those were irrefutable. The challenge was the story. Board members didn't respond to spreadsheets. They responded to narrative, to clear villains and victims, to understanding how they'd been deceived and why they should care. Lucas had to make them feel it. He was 3 hours deep into building the presentation when his phone rang. Caroline's name flashed on the screen, and his heart immediately kicked into panic mode. It was 11 p.m. She never called this late unless something was wrong. "Is Emma okay?" he answered. "She's fine. She's asleep. I'm calling about you." Lucas exhaled. "I'm fine too." "Are you? Because you just texted me asking if you could pick Emma up late Monday, which means whatever you're doing isn't finished, which means you're stressed." "I'm working on a project. It's almost done." "Lucas." Caroline's voice shifted to the tone she'd used when they were kids, and she caught him lying about homework. "I've known you your entire life. You don't do projects that require weekend work and stress texting. What's actually happening?" He could lie, should lie. This wasn't Caroline's problem, but lying to his sister had never worked, and he was too tired to be convincing. "I took a consulting job," he admitted. "Financial analysis for a company that's having problems. It's short-term, pays well, and I'm trying to finish before Monday so nothing interferes with Emma." "What kind of problems?" "The kind involving fraud and corporate sabotage." Silence. "Lucas." "I know. You haven't worked in corporate finance in 6 years. You got out because it was destroying you. Remember? 80-hour weeks, constant travel, missing every important moment because some executive needed a report? This is different. How? Because I'm in control. I set the terms. And because 400 people are going to lose their jobs if I don't finish this." More silence. He could practically hear Caroline processing, weighing whether to push harder or let it go. "Is this dangerous?" she finally asked. "No, it's just complicated." "That's not the same thing. Caroline, I'm fine. I'm sitting in a beach house drinking bad coffee and building PowerPoint slides. The most dangerous thing here is my caffeine intake." "And when this is done, you're coming back to being just Emma's dad?" The question hit harder than Lucas expected. Was he? Could he? 24 hours ago, he would have said yes without hesitation. But now, with Richard's evidence spread across his screen, and Natalie's voice in his head, and the weight of 400 lives depending on what he did next, he wasn't sure. "Yes," he said anyway. "Monday afternoon, I'm back to being just dad. This is a one-time thing. You're a terrible liar. I'm hanging up now." "Lucas?" "Yeah?" "Emma drew you another picture today. She said it's you fighting a dragon because you're the bravest person she knows." Lucas closed his eyes. "I'm not fighting dragons." "Maybe not, but you're fighting something. Just make sure you come home when it's done." She hung up before he could respond. Lucas sat there, phone in hand, staring at his laptop screen. The presentation was half built. Richard's evidence was overwhelming. Tomorrow, they would walk into that board meeting and destroy Victor Lane's 8-year plan.
And then what?
He'd go home to Emma, to their small apartment, to the simple life he'd built from the wreckage of his marriage and career. He'd make breakfast and help with homework and pretend that this weekend hadn't reminded him what it felt like to use his brain for something bigger than budgeting grocery money. Lucas shook his head and went back to work. Existential crises could wait. Right now, he had a presentation to build. By 3 a.m., he had something presentable. Not perfect, but clear. The narrative flowed from Richard's initial blackmail through the shell company payments, the cryptocurrency conversions, and the final destination at Harbor Digital. Every claim was supported by documentation. Every connection was traced and verified. He'd structured it to hit the board in waves. First, establish that fraud occurred. Second, show the pattern proving it was systematic. Third, reveal Victor's involvement.
Fourth, demonstrate that this wasn't just theft, but corporate sabotage designed to destroy Brooks Line while building a competitor. The final slide was simple: a side-by-side comparison of Brooks Line's declining content budget and Harbor Digital's expansion timeline. The correlation was undeniable. Lucas saved the file, emailed it to Natalie with the subject line, "Board presentation final," then collapsed on the couch without bothering to change clothes. He was asleep in seconds. His phone woke him 4 hours later. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and for a disorienting moment, Lucas forgot where he was and why his neck hurt. Then he saw Natalie's name on the screen, and everything came rushing back. "Did you sleep?" he answered. 3 hours. You? 4. We're basically functioning adults. I read your presentation. Her voice was different, steadier, like she'd found solid ground after days of drowning. It's good. Better than good.
The board won't be able to ignore this. That's the idea. Richard's really going to testify. He is. I talked to his lawyer last night. They're presenting it as full cooperation in exchange for consideration. The lawyer thinks if Richard comes clean completely, the DA might offer a deal. And what do you think? Lucas hesitated. I think Richard made bad choices, but he's trying to make them right. I think people deserve second chances when they earn them. Even when they steal millions? He didn't keep it, Victor did. Richard was a tool, a willing tool, yes, but still a tool. Natalie was quiet for a moment. You see the best in people. That's either admirable or naive. My daughter thinks everyone deserves kindness until they prove otherwise. I'm just following her example. She sounds wise. She's 6. She also thinks vegetables are a conspiracy. That got a real laugh. The board meeting starts at 10. I'm sending a car for you at 9. Don't argue.
I wasn't going to.
My Civic barely made it to Portland yesterday. Lucas? Yeah? Whatever happens today, thank you. For caring when you didn't have to. For fighting when it wasn't your fight. It became my fight the moment I saw that number on the beach. Some things you can't walk away from. Still, thank you. She hung up and Lucas dragged himself to the shower, trying to wash away the exhaustion and caffeine jitters and the growing sense that today was going to change everything. The car Natalie sent wasn't just a car, it was a black Mercedes with a driver who looked like he moonlighted as a bodyguard. Lucas felt ridiculous climbing into it wearing the one decent suit he'd brought, wrinkled from being shoved in a duffel bag. The drive to Brooks Line's headquarters took 40 minutes through Sunday morning traffic that was mercifully light. Lucas used the time to review his presentation one last time, making minor tweaks, strengthening transitions, ensuring every word counted. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Good morning, Daddy. Aunt Caroline says you're working hard. I'm proud of you. Here's a picture of my dragon drawing. The attached image showed a crayon masterpiece of a stick figure, him presumably, holding a sword and facing a green dragon that breathed red fire. Emma had written Daddy the Bravest across the top in uneven letters. Lucas saved the image and set it as his phone's wallpaper. Whatever happened today, he was doing this for her. For all the Emmas whose parents worked at Brooks Line and needed their jobs to provide dragon drawings and craft supplies and the security of knowing tomorrow would come. The Mercedes pulled up to a glass tower in downtown Seattle that screamed tech money. The Brooks Line media logo glowed above the entrance, all clean lines and modern fonts. Lucas had never been here before. His entire relationship with Natalie had existed in coffee shops and phone calls and beach encounters. Seeing her world made it real in a way that spreadsheets hadn't. The driver opened his door. "Ms. Brooks is waiting in the executive conference room, 12th floor. Someone will meet you at reception." Lucas thanked him and walked into the building, feeling like an imposter. The lobby was all polished concrete and exposed brick, with monitors displaying Brooksline's content, cooking shows, travel vlogs, tech reviews, the kind of digital media that had replaced traditional television. 400 people worked here. 400 lives that Victor Lane was willing to destroy for revenge. Not today. A young woman in professional attire met him at reception. "Mr. Reed, I'm Jennifer, Miss Brooks's executive assistant. If you'll follow me." They took an elevator to the 12th floor in silence. Jennifer led him down a hallway lined with awards and framed magazine covers featuring Natalie, then stopped outside a conference room with glass walls. Through the glass, Lucas could see Natalie standing at the head of a massive table, reviewing documents. She wore a black suit that probably cost more than his car, her hair pulled back severely, every inch the CEO. She looked up as Jennifer opened the door. "Lucas, good. We have 30 minutes before the board arrives." She gestured to Jennifer. "Coffee for Mr. Reed, and those documents I asked for." Jennifer disappeared. Natalie turned to Lucas, and for just a second, the CEO mask slipped. He saw the fear underneath, the exhaustion, the weight of everything riding on the next 2 hours. "You ready?" she asked quietly. "Are you?" "No, but I'm going to pretend I am, and hopefully that's enough." "It will be." Jennifer returned with coffee and a stack of folders. "The board members are starting to arrive, Mr. Lane is already here. He's in his office." Natalie's jaw tightened. "Of course he is. Probably preparing his victory speech." "Or his defense," Lucas offered. "Victor doesn't defend. He attacks." "That's who he is." The conference room door opened and an older man in an expensive suit walked in, followed by 2 others. Then a woman in her 60s. Then 3 more people Lucas didn't recognize. The board was assembling. Each member took a seat around the massive table, creating an almost theatrical arrangement. Natalie remained standing at the head. Lucas took a seat along the wall, present but not part of the board, a witness waiting for his moment. At 9:58, Victor Lane walked in. He was exactly what Lucas expected. Mid-40s, tailored suit, confident stride, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. He carried a leather portfolio and had the bearing of someone who owned every room he entered. His eyes swept the conference room, cataloging attendees, then stopped on Lucas. "Who's this?" he asked Natalie directly. "Financial consultant. I've asked him to review some irregularities in our acquisition expenses." Victor's smile didn't waver, but something cold flashed in his eyes. "Interesting timing. I've called this meeting to discuss those same irregularities." "Then we'll have a productive conversation," Natalie said smoothly. Victor took his seat. The room settled into tense silence. At exactly 10 a.m., Natalie called the meeting to order. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," she began. "Victor requested this emergency session to discuss concerns about the Velocity digital acquisition. Before we hear from him, I'd like to provide context." Victor leaned back in his chair, radiating confidence. "By all means." Natalie nodded to Lucas. "Mr. Reed has been conducting an independent forensic analysis of our acquisition expenses. Lucas, would you present your findings?" This was it. Lucas stood, connected his laptop to the conference room display, and pulled up his presentation. "Over the past 72 hours," he began, "I've analyzed approximately 3 months of financial data related to the Velocity digital acquisition. What I found indicates systematic fraud designed to damage Brooksline Media while funding a competitor." The room went still. Lucas clicked to his first slide, showing the budget versus actual spending. The acquisition was budgeted at $2 million for integration costs. Actual spending reached $4.3 million. This slide shows where that excess went. Next slide. The shell companies. 4 vendor companies appeared in Brooksline's systems immediately after the acquisition. Apex Solutions Group, Summit Consulting Partners, Horizon Business Services, and Strategic Integration LLC. Combined, they received $2.8 million in payments over 3 months. Victor's expression remained neutral, but Lucas saw his fingers tap once against the table. A tell. These companies share several characteristics, Lucas continued. All were registered in Delaware within a 2-week period before the acquisition closed. All use the same incorporation service. All have generic websites with no actual business presence. And all payments were personally approved by CFO Richard Vasquez. One of the board members, an older woman Lucas recognized from the lobby photos as Sarah Chen, Brooksline's lead independent director, leaned forward. "Are you saying Richard embezzled this money?" "I'm saying Richard approved these payments under duress, but he wasn't the architect." Lucas clicked to the next slide, the money trail. Payments from the shell companies were converted to cryptocurrency and moved through multiple exchanges. The final destination was a company called Harbor Digital Studios. He pulled up Harbor's corporate structure. Harbor Digital is owned through a network of shell corporations. But when you trace through the layers, the ultimate owner is Lane Capital Partners. Every eye in the room turned to Victor. His smile was gone now, replaced by something harder. "That's an interesting conspiracy theory," Victor said calmly. "But Harbor Digital is a portfolio company, yes. Lane Capital invested in it 18 months ago. That's not a crime." "Investment isn't a crime," Lucas agreed. "Using stolen funds to finance a competing business while sabotaging the company you're supposed to be overseeing is." He clicked through a series of slides showing Harbor's hiring patterns. Every major hire had come from Brooksline, lured away with contracts that Harbor shouldn't have been able to afford based on its revenue. Harbor has been systematically poaching Brooksline's talent using money stolen from Brooksline, Lucas said. "This isn't market competition, it's corporate sabotage funded by fraud." Victor stood abruptly. "These are serious accusations without proof. You have circumstantial connections and speculation." "I have documentation," Lucas said quietly. He clicked to a new slide showing an email thread. "These are messages between Richard Vasquez and an account registered to Robert Chen. Each message corresponds with a payment to the shell companies. Robert Chen's account was registered using an IP address traced to Lane Capital Partners' office." Sarah Chen's voice cut through the room. "Victor, is there something you'd like to say?" "I'd like to say that this is a witch hunt," Victor replied, his voice sharp. "Natalie is desperate to cover her own mismanagement. She's brought in some consultant to build a narrative that deflects blame. This is..." The conference room door opened. Richard Vasquez walked in, accompanied by a man in a gray suit who carried himself like an attorney. Victor's face went pale. "Mr. Vasquez," Natalie said calmly, "thank you for coming." Richard looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes found Victor, held for a moment, then moved to the board. "My name is Richard Vasquez," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "I was CFO of Brooksline Media until Thursday. I'm here to provide testimony about financial fraud I participated in under coercion from Victor Lane." The room erupted. Board members spoke over each other, demanding explanations, asking questions. Victor remained standing, his jaw clenched, eyes blazing at Richard with pure hatred. Sarah Chen raised her hand and the room quieted. "Mr. Vasquez," she said, "you understand that what you're about to say can be used against you legally?" "I do. My attorney has advised me to invoke my Fifth Amendment rights, but I believe the truth matters more than my personal legal jeopardy." Richard pulled out a folder. "I have documentation of every fraudulent payment, every email exchange, every conversation where Victor Lane directed me to funnel company funds to his shell companies. I'm prepared to provide all of it to this board and to cooperate fully with any investigation." Victor's voice was ice. "You're lying. This is a coordinated effort to pull..." "To what?" Richard turned to face him directly. "To stop you from destroying the company you've spent 8 years trying to ruin? To prevent you from using Natalie's success to fund your revenge fantasy?" "You have no idea what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. You told me yourself. You said Natalie stole everything from you, that she deserved to watch it all burn. You said this was about justice." Victor moved toward Richard, and Lucas instinctively stepped between them. "Sit down," Lucas said quietly, "or leave. Your choice." Victor stared at him, and Lucas saw something dangerous there. Rage barely contained, pride wounded beyond healing. "You think you've won," Victor said, his voice low. "You have no idea what's coming." "Mr. Lane," Sarah Chen's voice was sharp,
I'm suspending your board seat effective immediately pending a full investigation. You need to leave this building. You can't. I can and I am. Security will escort you. As if summoned, 2 security officers appeared in the doorway. Victor looked around the room at the board members who'd once deferred to his judgment, at Natalie standing calm and controlled at the head of the table, at Lucas who'd unraveled everything in less than a week. "This isn't over," Victor said. Then he walked out, security following. The room stayed silent until the elevator doors closed. Sarah Chen turned to Natalie. "We need to discuss next steps. Legal counsel, damage control, financial audit. This is going to be a nightmare." "I know," Natalie said, "but it's a nightmare we'll handle transparently. I'm proposing we bring in an independent firm to conduct a complete forensic audit. We disclose the fraud publicly, cooperate fully with law enforcement, and show our stakeholders that we're committed to accountability." Another board member, a younger man Lucas didn't recognize, spoke up. "That could destroy shareholder value." "Covering it up would destroy the company," Natalie countered. "We do this right. We take the hit. We rebuild trust." Lucas watched her command the room, saw the CEO who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd been knocked down and was choosing to get back up with integrity. Sarah Chen nodded slowly. "I'll support that approach. All in favor?" Every hand went up. "Then let's get to work," Sarah said. "Natalie, you'll coordinate with legal. Richard, your attorney should contact our counsel immediately to discuss cooperation terms. Mr. Reed, I assume you're available for continued consulting?" Lucas glanced at Natalie. She was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Gratitude, yes, but something else too. "Short term," he said. "I have other commitments." "Understood. We'll make it work." The board meeting dissolved into smaller conversations. People clustering around Richard and his attorney, others making phone calls, the machine of corporate crisis management grinding into motion. Lucas gathered his laptop and notes, preparing to slip away quietly. "Lucas?" Natalie had appeared beside him. "You did it," she said quietly. "We did it. You, me, Richard, team effort. Don't downplay what you accomplished. You saved my company." "I found some numbers. You're the one who built something worth saving." She studied him for a long moment. "What happens now?" "Now you spend the next few months cleaning up the mess. Independent audits, legal proceedings, rebuilding trust. It's going to be exhausting." "I meant with you." Lucas smiled. "I pick up my daughter tomorrow morning. Tuesday I'm helping with a school project about butterflies. Wednesday is her best friend's birthday party. My life's pretty full." "But you'll consult during the audit? We need someone we can trust. Limited hours, remote work only, and Emma comes first, always. I wouldn't ask for anything else." They stood there as the conference room slowly emptied around them, 2 people who'd met 4 days ago and had somehow fought a war together. "Natalie," Lucas said carefully, "what Victor said about you stealing his company idea is partially true," she interrupted. "We were partners. We planned to start a digital media company together. But Victor wanted to build something shallow, clickbait and viral nonsense. I wanted to create actual content worth watching. When we couldn't agree, I left and started Brooksline myself. I did use some of his investor contacts. I did build on ideas we discussed together. That's not stealing, that's a partnership ending. Tell that to Victor. In his mind, I betrayed him, took everything and left him with nothing. So he spent 8 years planning revenge. Some people can't let go." Natalie's expression was sad. "I actually feel sorry for him. All that intelligence and drive wasted on hatred." Lucas thought about his ex-wife, about the anger he'd felt when she left, about the choice he'd made to channel that into being a better father instead of seeking revenge. "Forgiveness is cheaper than hatred," he said. "Takes less energy, hurts fewer people." "Is that more wisdom from Emma?" "That's from me learning the hard way." Natalie smiled. "You're a good man, Lucas Reed. I'm just a dad doing his best. You're more than that, but I'll let you believe otherwise if it makes you comfortable." She extended her hand and Lucas shook it, feeling the same firm grip as that first meeting on the beach. "Thank you," Natalie said, "for everything. Thank you for trusting a stranger. You're not a stranger anymore." She walked away to rejoin the board members, slipping back into CEO mode like putting on armor. Lucas headed for the elevator, exhausted and wired and ready to be done with corporate wars. The lobby was quiet, the Sunday morning calm not yet broken by Monday's business. His phone buzzed as he walked outside. Caroline checking in. He called her back. "It's done," he said when she answered. "You okay?" "I'm tired. But yeah, I'm okay." "Coming home?" "Tomorrow. I'll pick up Emma and we'll come home." She'll be excited. She's been counting down hours. Lucas smiled, feeling the weight of the weekend start to lift. "Tell her I love her, and I'll see her soon." "Will do." "Lucas? Yeah? I'm proud of you. Whatever you did this weekend, I'm proud." He stood on the sidewalk outside Brooksline Media headquarters, Sunday sun warming his face, and felt something settle inside him. The knowledge that he'd done what needed doing, that he'd helped when he could have walked away, that he'd remembered how to be more than just Emma's dad without forgetting that being Emma's dad was the most important thing. "Thanks, Caroline," he said. "I'll see you tomorrow." He hung up and started walking, no particular destination in mind, just movement through a city that was waking up to a normal Sunday, while behind him a company began the long work of healing from betrayal. Tomorrow, he'd return to his real life. But today, for just a moment, Lucas let himself feel what it was like to have fought and won, to have mattered in a way that stretched beyond bedtime stories and breakfast negotiations. The ocean was visible between buildings, gray-blue and infinite. Lucas thought about the woman he'd met on the beach 4 days ago, papers flying in the wind, desperation barely concealed beneath corporate armor. He'd helped her. Not because she'd paid him, though that would cover Emma's summer camp. Not because it was exciting to use his brain again, though it was. But because when you saw someone drowning, you offered your hand. That's what Emma would have done. She would have helped because helping was what good people did. Lucas pulled out his phone and looked at his wallpaper. Emma's dragon drawing, all crayon confidence and unconditional belief that her dad could fight monsters. "Not dragons, pumpkin," he said quietly to the image, "but close enough." Then he headed back to the beach house to pack, to leave behind this brief return to his old life, to remember that the most important numbers in his world weren't on spreadsheets, but in the hours and minutes he got to spend being someone's whole world. The sun climbed higher, the city moved around him, and Lucas Reed, single father and accidental hero, smiled and kept walking. The beach house felt different when Lucas returned, quieter somehow, though nothing had physically changed. His laptop still sat on the kitchen table surrounded by cold coffee cups. His duffel bag still sprawled open in the bedroom corner, but the weight that had pressed on his shoulders for 4 days had lifted, leaving behind something he couldn't quite name. Relief, maybe. Or exhaustion so complete it felt like peace. He spent the rest of Sunday afternoon cleaning up the evidence of his weekend war. He deleted sensitive files, organized receipts for Natalie's accounting department, and drafted a brief summary of remaining work needed for the forensic audit. Professional closure, the kind that let him walk away knowing he'd left no loose ends. By sunset, he was done. The beach called to him one last time, and Lucas found himself walking the same stretch of sand where he'd met Natalie 5 days ago. Hard to believe it had only been 5 days. Hard to believe that a chance encounter and some scattered papers had led to corporate espionage and courtroom-worthy evidence in the destruction of an 8-year revenge plot. His phone rang as he reached the spot where Natalie had stood, barefoot and desperate. Her name on the screen made him smile despite himself. "Should you be calling me?" he answered. "Don't you have a company to save?" "The company's saving itself for now. Legal's handling the immediate crisis, Sarah Chen is managing the board, and I've been ordered to go home and sleep by approximately 17 people." "Are you going to follow that order?" "Absolutely not. I'm in my office planning next quarter's content strategy because sitting still makes me think about Victor, and thinking about Victor makes me want to throw things." Lucas heard the tremor beneath her forced lightness. The adrenaline crash was hitting, the reality of how close she'd come to losing everything. "You should throw things," he said. "Might be therapeutic." "I have a very expensive vase that's been tempting me all day." "Do it. I won't tell." A pause, then the distinct sound of something shattering. "That was $700, Natalie said, sounding surprised at herself. And you're right. That was therapeutic. Glad I could help. Lucas, I've been thinking about what happens next. The audit's going to take months. We'll need someone to coordinate with the investigators, translate the financial findings, help rebuild our internal controls. I know you said limited hours, but I meant it. Emma comes first. I know, and I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking if there's a way to make both work. Remote consulting, flexible schedule, whatever you need. I'll pay whatever rate makes it worth your time.
Lucas watched the ocean roll in, thought about his bank account that desperately needed whatever Natalie was offering, thought about Emma, who deserved summer camp and new shoes and maybe even that bike she'd been hinting about for months. 2 days a week, he heard himself say, Tuesday and Thursday, while Emma's in school. 4 hours maximum. And the second she needs me for something, school event, sick day, bad dream, I'm out. No negotiations. Deal. Send me your rate. $300 an hour. That's more than you charged this weekend. This weekend was crisis rates. Long-term consulting is different. Plus, I have to explain to my daughter why Daddy's working again, and that conversation's worth the premium. Natalie laughed, and it sounded genuine this time. You're going to tell a 6-year-old about corporate fraud? I'm going to tell her about helping people who need help. She understands that. She sounds remarkable. She is. You'll meet her eventually if we're working together. She likes to video call during lunch. I look forward to it. They fell into comfortable silence, the kind that happens between people who've been through something together. Lucas, Natalie said quietly, what you did this weekend, finding the fraud, convincing Richard to testify, standing up to Victor, that took courage. Not just professional skill, actual courage. I was just doing the job you hired me for. You did more than that. You cared when you could have just delivered analysis and walked away. You fought for people you'd never met because it was right. That's rare. Lucas didn't know what to say to that. Accepting compliments had never been his strength, especially when they touched on things that felt less like choices and more like reflexes. My daughter drew me fighting a dragon, he finally said. She thinks I'm brave because I kill spiders and check for monsters under her bed. If I can be her hero for little things, I guess I can try to be someone's hero for bigger things too. You're a good father. I try to be. And a good person. That too. Another pause, is heavier this time. I should let you go, Natalie said. You're picking up Emma tomorrow, and I'm keeping you from whatever normal fathers do on Sunday nights. Normal fathers watch cartoons they've seen 40 times and negotiate bedtime extensions. I'm just packing and pretending I'm not exhausted. Then pretend a little longer. Get some actual sleep. You've earned it. You too, Natalie. Eventually. Right now, I'm going to clean up broken vase and try to figure out how to tell 400 employees that their CFO was embezzling and a board member was sabotaging them without causing mass panic. Tell them the truth. That you found the problem and fixed it. That you chose transparency over cover-up. People respect honesty. More wisdom from Emma? That's from 6 years of explaining hard truths to a kid who asks impossible questions. You learn to value honesty. I'll remember that. Good night, Lucas. Good night. She hung up, and Lucas stood on the beach watching the sun sink toward the horizon, painting the ocean in shades of orange and gold that would disappear in minutes. Tomorrow he'd pick up Emma. They'd drive home together, and she'd talk nonstop about her weekend adventures while he listened and laughed and remembered why none of the corporate drama mattered as much as moments like that. But tonight, just for a moment, he let himself feel proud of what he'd accomplished. Not the analysis or the investigation or even the courtroom-ready evidence, but the simple act of seeing someone who needed help and choosing to help them. That was worth more than any paycheck. Lucas walked back to the beach house as darkness fell, packed his bags with the efficiency of someone who'd been doing single-parent logistics for years, and set his alarm for 6 a.m. Caroline's house was 3 hours away. Emma would be waiting. He fell asleep thinking about dragon drawings and broken vases and a CEO who'd trusted a stranger because sometimes trust was the only option left. The alarm felt cruel when it went off, but Lucas was dressed and on the road by 6:30, coffee in hand, ready to leave behind corporate wars and return to the simpler battles of fatherhood. The drive gave him time to think about Natalie's offer,
about the consulting work that would bring structure and purpose back into his weeks, about whether he was ready for that, whether Emma was ready for him to be something more than just her full-time parent. His ex-wife had left because he'd chosen work over family too many times. He'd sworn never to make that mistake again. But this was different, wasn't it? Limited hours, clear boundaries, work that mattered without consuming him. Or was he just rationalizing the same pattern with better excuses? The questions followed him through 200 miles of highway until he pulled into Caroline's driveway at 9:47 a.m. and saw Emma burst through the front door like a small, joyful rocket. "Daddy!" She launched herself at him before he'd fully exited the car, arms wrapping around his waist, face pressed against his shirt. "Hey, Pumpkin." Lucas lifted her into a hug, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and whatever craft project she'd been working on. "Did you have fun?" "So much fun. Aunt Caroline taught me to make friendship bracelets, and we watched 3 movies, and I ate ice cream for breakfast." "Ice cream for breakfast?" "Only on Sunday. Aunt Caroline says weekends have different rules." Lucas looked over Emma's head to where Caroline stood in the doorway, arms crossed, smiling. "Different rules?" he called out. "Emergency rules," Caroline corrected. "She was sad you weren't here. Ice cream was medicinal." "I wasn't sad," Emma protested. "I just missed you a little bit." "I missed you a lot," Lucas said, setting her down but keeping hold of her hand. "Come on, let's get your stuff and head home." Emma ran inside to gather her things, leaving Lucas and Caroline on the driveway. "How was it really?" Caroline asked quietly. "Intense. Complicated. Done." "And the consulting job?" "Continuing 2 days a week while she's in school, boundaries firmly in place." Caroline studied him with the look she'd perfected over 37 years of being his older sister. "You're sure about this?" "No, but I'm sure I need to try. Emma deserves a father who's present, yes, but also one who's engaged with the world, who shows her you can care about things beyond your immediate bubble. Just don't lose yourself again. You barely survived it the first time." "I won't. I've got better reasons to stay grounded now." Emma reappeared dragging a backpack that seemed to have gained weight during her weekend stay. "Ready!" They said goodbye to Caroline with promises to visit soon, then headed home. Emma chattered the entire drive, recounting every detail of her weekend with the intensity only 6-year-olds could manage. Lucas listened and responded and felt the weekend's tension continue to drain away. This was his real life. Not boardrooms and corporate fraud, but car rides and cartoon voices and the simple joy of his daughter's presence. They stopped for lunch at Emma's favorite burger place, where she ordered chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs and announced that her friend Madison had invited her to a birthday party next weekend and could they please go shopping for a present because Madison really liked unicorns. "We can do that," Lucas said. "And Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Aunt Caroline said you were working this weekend. What kind of work?" Here it was, the conversation he'd been preparing for. "I was helping someone with a problem," Lucas said carefully. "A lady who runs a company was having trouble with her finances, and she needed someone who's good with numbers to figure out what was wrong. Did you fix it?" "I helped her fix it, yes." "Was it hard?" "Parts of it were very hard." Emma considered this while demolishing a dinosaur nugget. "Did you fight a dragon?" Lucas smiled. "Sort of. Not a real dragon, but I did fight against some people who were doing bad things." "And you won?" "We won, the lady and I, together." "That's good, because you're the bravest person I know." Lucas felt his throat tighten. "I'm not that brave, sweetheart." "Yes, you are. You check for monsters and you fix broken things and you help people. That's brave." Sometimes 6-year-olds understood the world better than adults. "Thank you, Pumpkin," Lucas said. "That means a lot. Are you going to keep helping the lady?" "A little bit. 2 days a week while you're at school. Is that okay with you?" Emma thought about it seriously. "Will you still be home when I get home?" "Always. I'll drop you off, do some work, and be there when you get back. Nothing changes for you." "Then it's okay, but you have to tell me about it, like stories." "Deal. Though I'll have to make them less boring than they actually are." "Everything's interesting if you tell it right, Daddy. You taught me that." Lucas looked at his daughter, at her ketchup-smeared face and complete confidence in him, and felt something solidify inside him. He could do this. Balance work and fatherhood, purpose and presence, as long as he never forgot which one mattered most. They finished lunch and drove home to their small apartment, where Emma immediately scattered toys across the living room while recounting her weekend one more time with additional details she'd forgotten earlier. Lucas unpacked, started laundry, and checked his email. 3 messages from Natalie, all marked low priority, all related to setting up his consulting contract. He'd deal with them tomorrow. Tonight was for Emma, for bath time and bedtime stories and the routine that grounded them both. But after Emma was asleep, when Lucas sat alone in the living room with his laptop and a cup of tea, he allowed himself to open Natalie's emails. The first was the contract, standard consulting terms with the modifications they'd discussed. The second was a thank you note, professional but warm. The third was different. The subject line read, "For when you're ready." Lucas opened it. "I know you're back to your real life now, and I respect that. But I wanted you to know something. This weekend, you didn't just save my company, you reminded me why I built it in the first place. Not for money or prestige or revenge against people who doubted me, but because creating something meaningful matters. Because 400 people depending on you is both terrifying and wonderful. Because doing the right thing when it's hard is the only way to live with yourself. I'd forgotten that somewhere along the way. You reminded me. So thank you. Not CEO to consultant, person to person. You made a difference, Lucas Reed. Emma's lucky to have you, so am I, even if just as an occasional consultant, looking forward to working together and to meeting the girl who taught you to fight dragons. Natalie." Lucas read it twice, then closed his laptop and sat in the quiet darkness of his living room. In the bedroom, Emma slept surrounded by stuffed animals and the dragon drawing she'd insisted on hanging above her bed. In Seattle, Natalie was probably still in her office, rebuilding what Victor had tried to destroy. In Portland, Richard was likely meeting with lawyers, trying to salvage what he could from his mistakes. And Lucas was here, in his small apartment with its secondhand furniture and crayon marks on the walls, feeling more content than he had in 6 years. The weekend had reminded him that he was more than just Emma's father, but Emma had taught him that being her father was the most important thing he'd ever be. The trick was holding both truths at once. His phone buzzed one last time. "Caroline, you make it home okay?" Lucas smiled and typed back, "We're home. Everything's good. Glad to hear it. Love you both." "Love you too." He set down his phone and walked to Emma's room, standing in the doorway watching her sleep. She'd kicked off her covers despite it being barely 70 degrees, sprawled across her bed in that boneless way kids managed. Lucas pulled the covers back over her, kissed her forehead, and whispered what he whispered every night. "Sweet dreams, pumpkin. I love you more than all the numbers in the world." Emma stirred slightly, but didn't wake. Lucas returned to the living room, made himself tea, and sat down with a book he'd been trying to finish for 3 months. Normal life resumed, but tomorrow would bring new questions. How to explain to Emma's school that he'd be available for emergencies but working part-time. How to set up a home office that didn't interfere with Emma's space. How to transition from full-time father to father who also worked without losing the balance he'd fought so hard to create. He'd figure it out. He always did. The week that followed settled into a new rhythm. Tuesday morning, Lucas dropped Emma at school and spent 4 hours working with Brooksline's legal team, translating financial evidence into language prosecutors could use. Thursday, he did the same, this time coordinating with the forensic auditors who'd been brought in to verify his findings. The work was engaging without being consuming. He could step away the moment Emma needed him, could focus completely on her when she was home, could separate the two parts of his life in a way that felt sustainable. Emma adjusted too. She liked hearing sanitized versions of what Daddy did during work hours, asking questions about spreadsheets and bad guys and whether the lady he was helping was nice. "She's very nice," Lucas told her one evening while they made dinner together. "Smart and strong and trying to do the right thing." "Like you," Emma said matter-of-factly, stirring pasta with intense concentration. "I don't know about that." "I do. You always try to do the right thing, even when it's hard." Lucas wondered when his daughter had become so wise, then remembered she'd always been this way. He'd just been too tired to notice sometimes.
Friday afternoon, Lucas got a call from Natalie asking if he could attend a meeting Monday morning, in person, at Brooksline headquarters. The prosecutors wanted to discuss Richard's cooperation agreement and needed Lucas to verify some of the evidence. "I can do that," Lucas said, "but I'll need to bring Emma. School's closed Monday for teacher in service." Silence on the other end. "You want to bring your daughter to a meeting about corporate fraud?" Natalie asked carefully. "I want to bring my daughter to work because I don't have childcare, and she won't be disruptive. She can sit in your lobby and do homework. She's very good at being quiet when needed." "Lucas, I didn't mean—" "I know what you meant, and the answer is yes. If you need me Monday, Emma comes with me. That's the boundary. That's the deal." Another pause. "All right," Natalie said. "Bring her. We'll set her up in my office with whatever she needs. I'd actually like to meet her." "You sure?" "Completely. I want to meet the girl who taught you to fight dragons." Monday morning, Lucas dressed Emma in her favorite purple dress and explained where they were going. "We're visiting the lady I've been helping," he said while braiding her hair. "You'll need to be on your best behavior. Quiet voice, polite manners, no running in the hallways." "I can do that." "Is she a princess?" "More like a queen. She runs the whole company." Emma's eyes went wide. "A real queen?" "Not with a crown, but she's in charge of lots of people and makes important decisions." "Can I meet her?" "You'll definitely meet her. Just remember to use your good manners." They drove to Seattle together, Emma clutching her backpack full of homework and colored pencils. She stared out the window at the tall buildings, asking questions about everything they passed. The Brooksline lobby looked different on a Monday morning. Busy, energetic, full of young people carrying laptops and coffee and purpose. Emma's hand tightened in Lucas's as they approached reception. "Mr. Reed," Jennifer appeared immediately. "And this must be Emma." Emma hid slightly behind Lucas's leg. "She's shy around new people," Lucas explained. Jennifer crouched down to Emma's level. "I have a daughter too. She's 8, and she loves purple just like you." Emma peeked out. "Really? Really? Would you like to see Ms. Brooks' office? It has a really cool window where you can see the whole city." Emma nodded, and just like that, Jennifer had won her over. They rode the elevator to the 12th floor, Emma chattering about school and her upcoming friend's birthday party. Jennifer listened attentively, asking questions, making Emma feel important. Natalie's office was exactly what Lucas expected. Corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than his car. But warm, too, with photos on the shelves and books that looked actually read, and a coffee mug that said "World's Okayest Boss." Natalie stood when they entered, and Lucas saw her entire demeanor shift as she looked at Emma. "You must be Emma," she said, her CEO voice softening. "I've heard wonderful things about you." Emma stepped forward bravely. "Are you the queen?" Natalie blinked, then laughed genuinely. "I suppose I am in a way, though I think boss is the more common term." "Daddy says you're very important." "Your daddy's very important too. He helped me solve a very big problem." "I know, he's the bravest." Natalie's eyes met Lucas's over Emma's head, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or recognition of what mattered most. "Why don't we get you set up with some paper and markers?" Natalie suggested. "I have a table right over here where you can do your homework while your dad and I have a meeting." Emma settled in with her backpack, spreading out worksheets and colored pencils with the serious focus of someone given an important task. Lucas followed Natalie to the conference room where the prosecutors waited, but his attention stayed partially on Emma, visible through the glass walls, tongue sticking out in concentration as she worked on math problems. The meeting took 90 minutes. The prosecutors wanted detailed explanations of the evidence, clarification on technical points, verification that the chain of custody was intact. Lucas answered every question while keeping one eye on Emma, who'd apparently finished her homework and was now drawing pictures. When they finished, Lucas excused himself and returned to Natalie's office. Emma had covered several pages with crayon drawings, castles and dragons, and what appeared to be stick figures fighting monsters. "What are you working on?" Lucas asked. "A present for the queen. Because Daddy said she needed help, and you helped her, and now she's not sad anymore." Natalie had followed Lucas into the office. She looked at Emma's drawings, and Lucas saw her eyes go suspiciously bright. "These are beautiful," Natalie said, crouching beside Emma's chair. "Is this me?" Emma pointed to a figure in a black dress standing on top of a castle. "That's you. You're the queen, and this is Daddy." She indicated another figure holding what might have been a sword or possibly a very large pencil. "He's fighting the dragon that was trying to hurt your castle." "And did he win?" "Of course. Daddy always wins when he's protecting people." Natalie accepted the drawings like they were priceless art. "Thank you, Emma. I'll treasure these." "You're welcome. Do you have any kids?" "No, I don't." "That's sad. Kids are fun. You should get some." Lucas intervened quickly. "Emma, that's personal." But Natalie was laughing. "You're absolutely right. Kids are fun. Maybe someday." They left shortly after, Emma waving goodbye to Jennifer and making Natalie promise to hang the drawings in her office. In the car, Emma was quiet for a few minutes before asking, "Daddy, is the queen lonely?" Lucas glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror. "What makes you ask that?" "She looked sad when I asked about kids. Not mad sad, just empty sad. She's very busy with her work. Sometimes busy people get lonely." "You get lonely sometimes too, I can tell." Lucas's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "How can you tell?" "Because sometimes you look at me the same way she looked at my drawings, like you're happy and sad at the same time." 6 years old and she could read him like a book. "I'm not lonely when I'm with you," Lucas said honestly. "But when I'm at school?" "Sometimes, yes, but that's okay. A little bit of lonely reminds you how good the not lonely feels." Emma seemed to accept this. "I think you and the queen should be friends. Then neither of you would be lonely." "We are friends, Pumpkin. We work together." "No, I mean real friends. Like how you and Aunt Caroline are friends. People who eat dinner together and tell jokes and stuff." Lucas didn't know how to respond to that, so he changed the subject to the upcoming birthday party and what kind of unicorn present would be best for Madison. But Emma's words stayed with him for the rest of the week. He and Natalie had developed an easy working relationship, professional respect that occasionally dipped into genuine friendship. Their Tuesday and Thursday calls often ran long, veering from business into conversations about books they were reading or restaurants they'd tried or the general chaos of modern life. It was comfortable, easy, nothing more. But maybe Emma had spotted something Lucas hadn't wanted to acknowledge, that working with Natalie had brought something back into his life beyond just purpose and income. It had reminded him what adult conversation felt like, what it meant to be valued for his mind as well as his parenting skills. It had reminded him that he was still Lucas, not just Emma's dad. Thursday afternoon, after their scheduled call ended, Natalie said, "Lucas, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "When was the last time you did something for yourself? Not for Emma, not for work, just for you." Lucas thought about it. "I read sometimes, after Emma's asleep." "That doesn't count. I mean something active, dinner out, movie, drinks with friends, basic human socializing." "I'm socializing with you right now." "This is work. I'm asking about your actual life." "This is my actual life." "Emma, work, making sure we're both fed and functional. That's it." Silence on the other end. "That's not sustainable," Natalie finally said. "It's been working fine for 6 years." "Has it? Or have you just been surviving instead of living?" The question hit harder than Lucas expected. Before he could formulate a response, Natalie continued, "I'm not criticizing, I'm genuinely asking, because I've watched you put Emma first in every single decision, and that's admirable. But at some point, doesn't she deserve a father who's actually happy, not just functional?" "I am happy." "Are you?" Lucas stared at his laptop screen, at the spreadsheet still open from their call, at the neat organization that defined his carefully controlled life. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "I'm content." "Is that the same thing?" "I don't think so, no." They sat with that for a moment. "Why are you asking this?" Lucas said. "Because you've spent the past month helping me rebuild my life. Maybe it's time someone helped you remember you have one too." "Natalie, have dinner with me, Saturday night. Not work. Just two people eating food and having a conversation. Emma can come too if you want.
though I suspect she'd prefer an evening with her aunt, who lets her have ice cream for breakfast. Lucas's heart did something complicated in his chest. That sounds like a date, he said carefully. Does it? I thought it sounded like two friends having dinner. Natalie, I'm not asking you to figure out your whole life right now. I'm asking if you'd like to have dinner Saturday. Yes or no? Lucas thought about Emma's words, about being happy and sad at the same time, about loneliness that lingered even when you weren't technically alone. Yes, he heard himself say. Saturday. Dinner. As friends. As friends, Natalie agreed. I'll text you the details. She hung up before he could change his mind. Lucas sat in his quiet apartment, afternoon sun streaming through the windows, and wondered what exactly he'd just agreed to, and whether Emma had been right all along. Saturday arrived with the kind of anxiety Lucas hadn't felt since his first date with his ex-wife, back when he was 23 and convinced he knew everything about life. Now at 39, with a 6-year-old daughter and a resume gap that could swallow careers, he stood in front of his closet, trying to remember what adults wore to dinner that wasn't a date, but also wasn't exactly not a date. Emma sat on his bed, swinging her legs and offering commentary. The blue shirt makes you look like a dad, she announced. I am a dad. But you don't want to look like one tonight. You want to look like a prince. I'm having dinner with a colleague, not going to a ball. The queen isn't a colleague, she's your friend. You said so. Lucas pulled out a gray button-down he'd bought for a wedding 2 years ago and never worn since. How about this one? Emma wrinkled her nose. It's boring. Boring is safe. Safe is boring. Lucas looked at his daughter, wondering when she'd become a relationship expert. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't always listen. She hopped off the bed and dug through his closet with the confidence of someone on a mission. Here, this one. She emerged holding a dark blue shirt Lucas had forgotten he owned. His sister had given it to him last Christmas with the note, "For when you're ready to rejoin the world." He'd hung it in the back of his closet and promptly ignored it. That's too nice for dinner, Lucas protested. Nothing's too nice for the queen. She gave you a job and she liked my drawings. And she's pretty. You should look pretty too. Men don't look pretty. Fine, handsome, whatever. Emma thrust the shirt at him. Trust me, Daddy. I know about these things. Lucas took the shirt, decided arguing with a 6-year-old about fashion was a battle he couldn't win, and changed. When he emerged from the bathroom, Emma clapped her hands. Perfect. Now you look like someone who fights dragons and goes to dinner. You're spending too much time with your aunt. Aunt Caroline says you need to have fun sometimes. She says you forget how. Lucas crouched down to Emma's level. I have fun with you all the time. That's different. That's dad fun. Tonight is Lucas fun. There's a difference. When did you start calling me Lucas? Just now, because tonight you're not just daddy, you're also Lucas who helps queens and looks handsome in blue shirts. Lucas pulled her into a hug, breathing in strawberry shampoo and the indefinable scent that was uniquely Emma. What am I going to do with you? Keep me forever and ever, because I'm the best daughter in the whole world? Deal. Caroline arrived at 6 to pick up Emma for their sleepover, taking one look at Lucas and grinning like she'd won a bet. Well, well, look at you rejoining civilization. It's just dinner. With Natalie Brooks, the CEO you've been talking about nonstop for 6 weeks. I have not been talking about her nonstop. You mentioned her 43 times last week. Emma counted. Lucas looked at his daughter, who smiled innocently. I'm very good at counting. Traitor, he said without heat. Emma kissed his cheek. Have fun, Daddy. Remember to smile and ask questions and don't talk about spreadsheets too much. Who taught you about dating advice? Aunt Caroline. She says you're rusty. Caroline at least had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I may have mentioned you haven't been on a date since the divorce, because I've been raising a child. And you've done brilliantly. But Emma's right. Tonight, just be Lucas. Remember what that feels like. They left in a flurry of overnight bags and Emma's excited chatter about the movies they'd watch and the popcorn they'd make, leaving Lucas alone in his apartment with 30 minutes before he needed to leave and no idea what he was doing. This was dinner with a colleague, a friend, someone who'd become important to him over the past 6 weeks of consultation work. Nothing more, except it felt like more.
Had felt like more since that first phone call when Natalie had asked about his life and actually listened to the answer. Since the meeting when Emma had given her crayon drawings and Natalie had looked at them like they mattered. Since every Tuesday and Thursday when their professional calls drifted into conversations about books and music and the strange loneliness of being responsible for other people's well-being. Lucas checked his reflection one more time, decided he looked acceptable if not exactly handsome, and drove to the restaurant Natalie had chosen. It was the kind of place Lucas would never pick on his own, upscale without being pretentious, the sort of restaurant that suggested success without shouting about it. He gave his name to the host and was led to a table near the window where Natalie was already waiting. She stood when she saw him, and Lucas forgot how to breathe for a second. He'd only ever seen Natalie in two contexts: corporate armor at the office or desperate and disheveled on the beach. Tonight she wore a simple black dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and understated, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in its usual severe bun. She looked beautiful. More than that, she looked happy. Lucas. She smiled, and it reached her eyes in a way her professional smiles never quite did. You found it okay? GPS is a wonderful invention. He sat down, suddenly hyper-aware of every movement. You look nice. So do you.
Emma chose the shirt, didn't she? How did you know? Because it's perfect, and you wouldn't have chosen it yourself. You would have gone with something safe and boring. She said the same thing. Your daughter is very wise. Everyone keeps telling me that. They ordered wine, then dinner, falling into conversation with the ease they'd developed over weeks of working together. But something was different tonight. Without the buffer of spreadsheets and legal documents, without the excuse of professional necessity, they had to confront what had been building between them. Can I ask you something? Natalie said after their food arrived. And I want an honest answer, not the diplomatic consultant response. All right. Why did you really help me that day on the beach? You could have walked away, should have walked away. You had no obligation to a stranger with scattered papers and corporate problems. Lucas thought about lying, about giving some noble reason about justice or helping people, but Natalie had asked for honesty. Because you reminded me of myself, he said quietly. 6 years ago, when my marriage fell apart, and I realized I'd chosen work over the people I loved and lost everything that mattered. You were standing there trying to hold it all together, and I saw what I'd looked like back then. Desperate and alone and pretending you weren't both. Natalie set down her fork. And you wanted to help because you knew what it felt like? I wanted to help because nobody helped me. People told me to work harder, be stronger, figure it out on my own, and I did. But it nearly broke me. I thought maybe you deserved better than that. Lucas, I'm not finished. He met her eyes. I also helped because the moment I saw that number, I couldn't walk away. It's not in me to see something broken and not try to fix it. Emma gets frustrated with that sometimes. She'll have a toy that's missing a piece and I'll spend hours searching for it because incomplete things bother me. I'm not a broken toy. No, you're a person who built something amazing and was watching it get destroyed by someone's revenge fantasy. That needed fixing too. Natalie reached across the table and took his hand. The gesture was simple, natural, but it sent electricity through Lucas's entire body. You did fix it, she said. The audit's almost complete. Victor's facing federal charges, Richard's cooperating fully and will likely get a reduced sentence. The board's implemented new financial controls. The company's stable. Then why do you still look worried? She smiled sadly. Because stability isn't the same as happiness. I've spent 8 years building this company. And for what? To prove Victor wrong? To show the world I could succeed? None of that means anything if I'm still eating dinner alone every night. You're not alone tonight. No. Tonight, I'm with someone who makes me remember what it's like to talk to another human being who actually listens, who cares about answers instead of just waiting for their turn to talk. Lucas's thumb traced small circles on the back of her hand without conscious thought. Natalie, what are we doing here? Having dinner. That's not what I mean. I know what you mean. She took a breath. I'm trying to figure out if two broken people can help each other become whole, or if that's just a nice idea that doesn't work in reality. We're not broken. We're just dented. That made her laugh. Dented. I like that better. They finished dinner talking about everything except work. Books they'd read, places they wanted to travel, childhood memories that shaped who they'd become. Lucas told her about Emma's dragon drawings, and the time she'd convinced him that invisible friends needed real birthday parties. Natalie shared stories about building her company from nothing, the terror and exhilaration of betting everything on herself. When the check came, they both reached for it. "I invited you," Natalie said, "and I'm old-fashioned enough to feel weird about the woman paying." "That's antiquated thinking." "Then consider it my way of saying thank you for the job that's letting me afford Emma's summer camp." Natalie let him take the check. "Fine, but next time I'm paying." "Next time?" "Well, we have to eat, and I enjoy your company, so yes, next time." Lucas paid, and they walked out into the Seattle evening. The city glowed around them, alive with Saturday night energy. "I should get home," Lucas said, not moving. "You should," Natalie agreed, also not moving. They stood there on the sidewalk, two people who'd found each other in the strangest circumstances, trying to figure out what came next. "Lucas, I need to tell you something." Natalie's voice was serious now. "When you first helped me, I told myself it was just business. You were a consultant solving a problem. But somewhere along the way, you became more than that. You became someone I looked forward to talking to, someone whose opinion mattered, someone who made me want to be better." "Natalie, let me finish. I know you have Emma. I know she comes first and should come first. I know you have a whole life that doesn't include complicated CEOs with trust issues and companies that demand everything. But I need you to know that if you wanted to try this, whatever this is, I would make room for it. I would make room for you, and for Emma, and for the life you've built. Because what we have, even if it's just friendship, is worth protecting." Lucas felt his heart do something complicated and wonderful and terrifying all at once. "I haven't dated anyone since my divorce," he said quietly. "I told myself it was because Emma needed stability, but really it was because I was scared. Scared of choosing wrong again. Scared of bringing someone into her life who might leave. Scared of wanting something for myself and having it cost me everything again. I understand that. But here's the thing." Lucas stepped closer. "You already are in her life. You've been in it for 6 weeks. She draws you pictures and asks about you and tells me you're lonely and need friends. She likes you, Natalie, and so do I. Not as a consultant or a colleague or even just a friend. I like you as someone who makes me remember I'm more than just Emma's dad. Someone who makes me want to be Lucas again. So what do we do about that?" "I don't know. Take it slow, see where it goes. Try not to screw it up." Natalie laughed. "That's not much of a plan. It's the best I've got. I'm out of practice at this." "So am I. Maybe we figure it out together." "Yeah, together sounds good." They stood there smiling at each other like awkward teenagers until Natalie stepped forward and kissed him. It was gentle, tentative, the kiss of two people who'd forgotten how but were willing to relearn. When they broke apart, Lucas was grinning like an idiot. "Emma's going to be insufferable about this," he said. "She already knows. She predicted it 2 weeks ago. Said we should be friends who eat dinner together. Apparently 6-year-olds are better at reading people than adults. She's going to want credit for matchmaking. Oh, absolutely. I'll never hear the end of it." Natalie kissed him again, longer this time, and Lucas felt something inside him that had been locked away for 6 years finally begin to open. They eventually said goodnight, making plans for the following weekend when Emma would join them for a museum trip she'd been begging Lucas to take her on. As he drove home, Lucas called Caroline. "Well," she answered immediately. "How was it?" "Good. Really good." "Define good." "Define mind your own business." "Lucas Reed, don't you dare hold out on me. Did you kiss her?" "Maybe." Caroline's squeal was loud enough that Lucas had to pull the phone away from his ear. "I knew it. Emma, your dad kissed the queen." Lucas heard Emma's voice in the background. I told you he would." "Put her on," Lucas said. Emma's voice came through clear and triumphant. "Did you have fun, Daddy?" "I did, sweetheart. Thank you for the shirt advice." "You're welcome. And Daddy, I'm happy you're happy." "I'm happy too, Pumpkin. See you tomorrow?" "See you tomorrow. Love you." "Love you more." He hung up and finished the drive home. his apartment feeling less empty than usual. The week that followed brought new challenges and adjustments, but they felt manageable now. Lucas continued his consulting work at Brooksline, the company's recovery steady and strong. The forensic audit confirmed everything Lucas had found, and federal prosecutors moved forward with charges against Victor Lane. Richard Vasquez received a plea deal in exchange for full cooperation, avoiding prison but facing probation and restitution payments that would take years to complete. He'd sent Lucas a note thanking him for giving him a chance to make things right. But more than the professional victories, Lucas found himself building something personal. He and Natalie fell into an easy rhythm of dinners and weekend outings, always including Emma, who took to Natalie with the same enthusiasm she showed for everything in her 6-year-old life. 3 months after their first dinner, Natalie joined them for Emma's end-of-school-year performance, where Emma played a flower in a play about gardens and forgot half her lines but beamed the entire time. Watching Natalie cheer alongside him, Lucas realized this was what happiness felt like. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of people who made problems worth solving. 6 months in, Brooksline Media held a press conference announcing their full recovery and new transparency initiatives. Natalie stood at the podium, radiating confidence, but when the questions got tough, her eyes found Lucas in the audience and he saw her steady. Afterward, she introduced him publicly, not as her consultant, but as her partner. The word sent whispers through the room, but Natalie didn't clarify whether she meant business partner or something more. She just smiled and answered the next question. That night, with Emma asleep at Caroline's and the two of them alone in Natalie's apartment for the first time, she asked him the question he'd been expecting. "What do we tell people? About us?" Lucas pulled her close. "The truth. That you needed help, and I happened to be good with numbers. That we became friends and then became more. That we're figuring it out as we go." "That's not very romantic." "You want romance? How about this? I met you on the worst day of your life, and you met me on a day when I'd forgotten I was more than just a father. We saved each other without meaning to. We built something real from broken pieces, and now we're here, trying to make it work because what we have is worth fighting for." "Better," Natalie admitted. "But you're right, we did save each other. Emma would say we're just two dented people who found each other. Your daughter really is wise. The wisest." A year after that day on the beach, Lucas stood in Brooksline's conference room presenting quarterly results to the board. The company had not only recovered but grown, expanding into new markets with the stability that came from honest leadership. When the meeting ended, Sarah Chen approached him. "Mr. Reed, the board has discussed your role here. You've been invaluable during the recovery, but we recognize you initially came on as temporary help." Lucas's heart sank, wondering if this was the conversation where they thanked him and moved on. "We'd like to offer you the permanent position of Chief Financial Officer," Sarah continued. "Full-time, competitive salary, whatever flexibility you need for your daughter. You've earned it." Lucas looked at Natalie, who was trying hard not to smile. "Can I think about it?" he asked. "Of course. Take whatever time you need." That evening, Lucas sat Emma down and explained the offer. "They want me to work there all the time," he said. "Not just 2 days a week. It would mean more money and more responsibility, but also more time away from you." Emma, now 7 and somehow even wiser, considered this seriously. "Would it make you happy?" she asked. "I think so. I like the work and the people. And you like the queen. Her name is Natalie, and yes, I like her very much. And she likes you." "She does." "Then you should do it. Because you taught me that doing things you love with people you love is what makes life good." "When did I teach you that?" "Every single day, Daddy. You just didn't know you were teaching it." Lucas pulled her into a hug. "What would I do without you? Be sad and eat bad food and wear boring shirts. It's a good thing you have me. The very best thing." He accepted the position the next day with one condition. He left every day at 3 to pick Emma up from school. No exceptions, no negotiations. Natalie, as CEO, signed off on it immediately. 2 years after the beach encounter, Lucas stood in his new office, smaller than Natalie's but with a view of the water that reminded him of how far they'd come. Emma's drawings covered one wall,
a gallery of dragons and castles and stick figures that chronicled her growing artistic skills. Natalie appeared in his doorway. Got a minute? For the CEO, always. She closed the door behind her, which usually meant serious conversation.
I've been thinking about something, she said. Should I be worried? Maybe, or maybe happy. I haven't decided which. She took a breath. Emma's birthday is next month. She's turning 8. I'm aware. The party planning has been intense. And you're both important to me. You and Emma, you've become my family in a way I didn't think was possible after everything with Victor. Lucas's heart started beating faster. I know we said we'd take things slow, Natalie continued, and we have. 2 years is slow, but I don't want slow anymore. I want permanent. I want Sunday mornings and birthday parties and parent-teacher conferences. I want Emma's dragon drawings on my walls, too. Natalie, I'm asking if you'd consider making this official. Not just the relationship, but the family. You and Emma, me and you, together, permanently. Lucas crossed the office and took her hands. Are you asking what I think you're asking? I'm asking if you'd marry me.
If you'd let me be part of Emma's life officially, if we could stop pretending this is temporary and admit we're building something that's meant to last. Lucas kissed her, long and deep and certain. Yes, he said when they broke apart. Yes to all of it. To marriage and family and dragon drawings on your walls. To Sunday mornings and parent-teacher conferences and every normal, beautiful, complicated thing that comes with building a life together. Emma's going to lose her mind with excitement. She's going to claim credit for the entire relationship. She should. She was right from the beginning. They stood there in Lucas's office, holding each other, while the Seattle skyline glowed outside the window, and Lucas thought about how far he'd traveled from that beach 2 years ago. He'd been a single father trying to find peace and solitude, convinced that being Emma's dad was enough purpose for one life. He'd been wrong. Or not wrong exactly, but incomplete. Emma had taught him about dragons and bravery and seeing the best in people. Natalie had reminded him that he was more than just a father, that his mind and heart and skills mattered beyond bedtime stories. Together, they'd shown him that you didn't have to choose between being a good parent and being a whole person. You could be both. You could fight dragons and fall in love and build a life that honored all the parts of yourself. The wedding was small, held on the same beach where Lucas had first met Natalie, with Emma as the flower girl wearing a purple dress and a crown because she'd insisted that if Natalie was the queen, she got to be the princess. Caroline cried through the entire ceremony. Richard Vasquez sent a gift with a note of congratulations and thanks for the second chance Lucas had helped him earn. The Brooksline staff threw them a reception that lasted until midnight, filled with laughter and dancing and toasts that made them both misty-eyed. But the moment Lucas would remember forever came the next morning when he woke up in Natalie's apartment, their apartment now, with Emma jumping on the bed demanding pancakes. "Daddy, Natalie, wake up! I'm starving and we need to celebrate with breakfast." Natalie laughed, her hair tangled on the pillow, looking nothing like a CEO and everything like someone happy. "Pancakes sound perfect," she said. Emma bounced between them. "Can I tell you something?" "Always," Lucas said. "I knew you two would get married. From the very first time you came home and told me about the queen on the beach, I knew." "Did you?" "Yes, because you smiled when you talked about her. You hadn't smiled like that in forever. And I knew anyone who made my daddy smile like that was special." Lucas pulled both his daughter and his wife into a hug, breathing in strawberry shampoo and the expensive perfume Natalie wore and the indefinable scent of family. "You were right, Pumpkin. She is special. And so are you. You're both the most special people in my whole world." "I know," Emma said with complete confidence. "Now, can we please have pancakes? All this being right is making me hungry." They made breakfast together, the three of them navigating the kitchen with the organized chaos that would become their morning routine. Emma chattered about school and her friends and the art project she wanted to work on. Natalie listened with genuine interest, asking questions, making suggestions. Lucas watched them interact and felt the last piece of his heart that had been locked away since his divorce finally opened completely. This was what he'd been missing. Not just love, though that mattered, but partnership. The knowledge that he wasn't facing parenting alone anymore.
that someone else cared about Emma's art projects and school concerns and whether they had enough milk for breakfast. That afternoon, they took Emma to the beach. She ran ahead, chasing waves and looking for shells, while Lucas and Natalie walked hand in hand along the waterline. "Do you ever think about that day?" Natalie asked, "when your paper scattered and I was too stubborn to ask for help?" "Every time I see a number that doesn't add up," Lucas said. "Every time Emma draws a dragon. Every time you walk into a room and I remember how lucky I am." "We're both lucky. You could have walked past me that day." "No, I couldn't. Some things you're meant to see. Some people you're meant to help. And some moments, no matter how small they seem, are designed to change your entire life." Emma ran back to them, her hands full of shells and her face glowing with joy. "Look what I found. This one's for Daddy because it's blue like the ocean, and this one's for Natalie because it's perfect and pretty, and this one's for me because I found it." "Those are beautiful," Natalie said, examining each shell with the same seriousness she brought to board meetings. "We should start a collection." "A family collection," Emma declared, "because we're a family now. Official and everything." "Official and everything," Lucas agreed. They stayed at the beach until sunset, building sandcastles and collecting shells and watching Emma run fearlessly toward waves that would never quite catch her. As the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and gold, Lucas thought about numbers and patterns and the strange mathematics of human connection. Two broken people meeting by chance, one desperate CEO and one struggling single father, both trying to hold together lives that were fraying at the edges. The odds of it working should have been impossible to calculate, but Emma had taught him something important. Some things couldn't be reduced to numbers. Some things required faith and courage and the willingness to believe that dragons could be defeated and happy endings could exist beyond fairy tales. "What are you thinking about?" Natalie asked, her head resting on his shoulder. "Math," Lucas said. "Of course you are. Not the boring kind, the kind where 1 + 1 equals more than 2. We're finding you didn't just add to my life, it multiplied everything good already in it." "That's terrible math and lovely sentiment. It's the best I've got." Emma ran back one more time, sand-covered and exhausted and perfect. "Can we come back tomorrow?" she asked. "We can come back whenever you want," Natalie said. "This beach is kind of special to us." "Because this is where you and Daddy met?" "Exactly." Emma looked at the ocean, at the spot where papers had scattered and lives had intersected, then back at her parents. "I'm glad you lost your papers that day," she said. "Because if you hadn't, Daddy wouldn't have helped you. And if he hadn't helped you, you wouldn't have become friends. And if you weren't friends, you wouldn't have gotten married. And if you didn't get married, I wouldn't have a Natalie. So really, losing your papers was the best thing that ever happened." Natalie laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. "You're absolutely right, Emma. Sometimes the worst days lead to the best things. Just like Daddy always says, broken things can be fixed if you care enough to try." "Dented things," Lucas corrected gently. "We were dented, not broken." "Whatever, you fixed each other anyway." Emma yawned hugely. "Can we go home now? I'm tired from being right all the time." They walked to the car together, Emma between them holding both their hands, swinging slightly as they walked. Lucas looked back at the beach one more time, at the place where everything had changed, and silently thanked whatever forces in the universe had put him in the right place at the right time with the right skills to help someone who needed him. That night, after Emma was asleep in her new room in their new apartment, Lucas and Natalie sat on the balcony watching the city lights flicker in the distance. "What happens now?" Natalie asked. "We've solved the crisis, saved the company, gotten married. What's the next chapter?" "The boring one," Lucas said. "The one where we wake up every day and go to work and come home to each other. Where we help Emma with homework and have family dinners and argue about whose turn it is to do laundry. The normal, unglamorous, absolutely perfect chapter where nothing dramatic happens except life." "That sounds wonderful." "It really does." They sat in comfortable silence until Natalie said, "Thank you, Lucas, for seeing me that day on the beach, for helping when you didn't have to, for showing me that trust and transparency and doing the right thing actually matter, for being exactly who you are. Thank you for hiring a stranger based on 5 seconds of financial analysis, for letting Emma into your life, for making me remember I'm more than just a dad,
for being brave enough to ask for help when you needed it. We make a good team. The best team. Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes and clutching her favorite stuffed dragon. I had a bad dream, she said quietly. Come here, Pumpkin. Lucas pulled her into his lap. What was the dream about? I dreamed that you and Natalie had to fight a dragon, but I wasn't there to help, and I got scared. We'll always have you to help us fight dragons, Natalie said, moving to sit beside them. Always, Emma. We're a team now. Promise? Promise, they said together. Emma settled into Lucas's lap, her breathing evening out as she drifted back toward sleep. Natalie's hand found Lucas's, and they sat there together on the balcony with their daughter between them and the city glowing below, and the future stretching ahead full of possibility. This was the ending Lucas hadn't known he was working toward that day on the beach. Not just solving a corporate crisis or finding romance or even building a family, but discovering that sometimes life's biggest transformation started with the smallest acts of kindness. That choosing to help someone when you could have walked away changed both of you in ways you couldn't predict. That numbers could tell you a lot about what was wrong, but people, the right people, the brave ones, the dented ones who kept trying anyway, they were the only ones who could tell you what was right. Emma's breathing deepened into sleep. Lucas adjusted his hold on her, this tiny person who'd taught him about dragons and bravery and seeing the best in people even when it was hard. I love you, he whispered to Natalie.
I love you too. Both of you, Emma mumbled, not quite asleep after all. Love both of you. Now shh, I'm trying to sleep. They laughed quietly, careful not to disturb her further, and stayed there on the balcony until the city lights began to fade with approaching dawn. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, work and parenting, and the 1,000 small decisions that made up a shared life. But tonight, in this perfect moment, Lucas Reed, single father turned consultant turned CFO turned husband, held his family close and knew with absolute certainty that every choice he'd made, every number he'd questioned, every person he'd chosen to help instead of walking past had led him exactly where he needed to be. Home. Not a place, but a feeling. The warmth of his daughter in his arms and his wife beside him, and the knowledge that he was exactly where he belonged, doing exactly what he was meant to do, with exactly the people who made his life complete. The beach had given him back himself. Natalie had given him partnership. Emma had given him purpose. And together, they'd given him something he'd lost and found again. The simple, powerful truth that happiness wasn't something you found in spreadsheets or boardrooms or even in perfect moments. It was something you built, one day at a time, with people who loved you enough to help you fight your dragons and celebrate your victories and remind you, when you forgot, that you were more than the sum of your mistakes. Lucas closed his eyes and held his family close, and for the first time in years, he felt completely, perfectly whole.